This tape is Town of Volney Monthly Board Meeting, January 14th, 1993. As a public service to my fellow residents of the Town of Volney, I have been volunteering my time and equipment to videotape meetings since January 1992. My only motive is a firm belief that an informed electorate will make an informed decision at election time that will ultimately benefit us all. If you share my belief and would like to make donations of blank videotapes to help me with my expenses, please call me at 598-5120. Thank you. My name is Terry Reynolds. All videotapes of the Town of Volney board meetings are available to rent free of charge to the public at Video World. And now, the program.
I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. We will all stand, and Councilman Jim Ridgway will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Byron, will you call the roll, please?
Councilman Ridgway.
Here.
Councilman Rose.
Here.
Councilwoman Smart.
Here.
Councilman Warner.
Here.
Supervisor McFarland.
Here. This first part of the evening will be a public hearing, and I will read the notice. The public hearing will be held by the Town of Volney Town Board at the Town of Volney Town Hall, County Route 6, Volney, New York, on the 14th day of January, 1993, at 7 p.m. to hear all interested parties speak.
Having some small difficulties with audio problems. This audio problem will clear up. Thank you. Please hold on. Thank you.
Resolution and swallow and the preamble is the last resolution, which is resolution number 9348. It reads, whereas the town planning board, December 23, 1990.
Please stand by. I had some audio problems with the camera. It will shortly clear up. Attention, please stand by. Had some audio problems with the camera. It will shortly clear up. Thank you.
And whereas the Volney Town Board, in conjunction with the Town Planning Board, have reviewed the county's modifications and have adopted them, with one exception. And whereas that exception consists of that part of this resolution, Part 3, dealing with the zones of the town, allowing the recreation business category. It varies from the county's recommended modification for the following reason. A complete review of the town's zoning ordinances is in process, and therefore that part may be modified relative to individual zones, with the possibility of the requirement of a special use permit in one or more zones. Therefore, move that the zoning ordinance of the town of Volney be amended as follows. 1.
Attention, I had some small audio problem with the camera during time of recording. This is a problem with the camera that has been fixed. Please stand by and bear with me. The audio will shortly clear up.
Shall be permitted. Example, golf balls for a golf course, tennis balls for a tennis court, arrows for an archery range. 3. Unless subsequently modified, a recreation business shall be allowed in all zones of the town of Volney with planning board and site plan approval. 4. Excessive light and noise shall not extend beyond the property boundary. 5. Buffering standards consistent with the recreational use and the neighborhood will be mandated. 6. The scale of buildings shall be limited to a size comparable to and compatible with the size of the existing buildings in the area of the proposed use. 7. Signage shall be consistent with its characteristics of signs for commercial development permitted in that specific zone. 8. Specifically excluded from this category of recreation business would be campgrounds. 9. To become effective upon publication in the official town newspaper. I will now open it up to public comment or questions.
Please stand by. Was experiencing some technical audio problems. The audio will shortly clear up. Thank you.
He's kept a really nice place. We've known him since about 1984. Everything's always well taken care of, and it's always the best. So, I feel that this would be a good thing.
Yes.
Could you define commercial in number 2?
Please stand by. Was experiencing some technical audio problems with the camera during the time of recording. This will shortly clear up. Please stand by.
Commercial would be, commercial means that there is, this would apply to profit or not-for-profit businesses. So that, for example, it could be a non-profit type thing, but it could also be a profit-making venture. So it would be commercial. Commercial means a profit-making venture. This applies to either type. But its primary purpose is recreational nature, as you mentioned, like tennis courts or something like that. It could be a health club, possibly, or something.
Well, it's just commercial seems like a broader thing and should have to be defined better than just saying commercial activity.
I believe, I don't want to use the word, but I believe the word commercial is defined in your zoning regulations. I don't have the zoning regulations with me. I think commercial, we're using a term, it's for a profit-making venture, a commercial business, commercial activity of one type or another. I think a necessity has to be somewhat broad. Let's see if it is in there. Commercial vehicle, commercial. Concerns you have in relation to that?
Well, it just leaves it open, you know, to what you're talking about, the recreation business, and then it says here to commercial activity. So to me, there's a big difference between recreation business and commercial.
Please stand by. Was experiencing some technical audio problems during the time of recording. Please stand by because the problem will clear up. Thank you.
Volney is a primarily rural town. A lot of the town of Volney is residential in nature and is residentially zoned. We have a good portion of our town is zoned R1, which is the most restrictive zone we have. That zone technically will prohibit almost any business venture of any type outside of a home occupation. But if you go down through some of our R1 zoned areas, you know, you'll have streets that are 55-mile-per-hour streets. You could have some homes, and then maybe a farm, and then maybe some pre-existing businesses from years past. It may not be comparable to, let's say, an R1 zone in possibly Tully or Camillus or Cicero, where you tend to have streets with reduced speed limits that are pretty strictly residential, home after home after home. With that in mind, we felt that we needed a little bit of flexibility in this ordinance, plus the fact that we are living outside the city of Fulton. We feel that there's potential for recreational type organizations to come into our area. And these are passive organizations. By that we mean they're the type of businesses or non-commercial businesses, because it could be a country club or something like that, that if we do this properly and if the planning board does its job, will have little impact on the neighborhood as a whole. It is not our goal to change the neighborhood, and we tried to, I think the chairman did a very good job on this resolution, giving us the flexibility to watch that. But at the same time, we felt there needed to be some flexibility here in order for this town to grow in a way that the public wants. And I think the public in certain areas would like to have this flexibility. There's a lot of property, and there might be some instances where I know that when I grew up, my grandparents had a commercial tennis court right in their backyard. In their backyard, then there was a fence, and then there was a commercial tennis court, and they used to be able to walk to it and play. And we thought that this flexibility would be good. This lady here brought out a specific case, which came to us a couple months ago, which tended to point out this. There was a lot of public support for the building of an archery range in an R1 zone. That's not permitted in our zone. This would allow that, as well as other type of activities of the same type, whether commercial or non-commercial. And we felt that, I discussed this with Ed Marks today, and it's a very forward-thinking concept, I think. It's ahead of the game in a lot of cases. But at the same time, I want to stress that this is all subject to planning board approval. We're talking about specific types of businesses or nonprofit organizations that are primarily recreational in nature. There's a lot of room here for the public to have input on a specific case. We are really concerned about lighting, noise, hours of operation, appearance. There's landscaping standards spelled out here. There's buffering spelled out. So it's something that we're approaching that we think the public wants, but at the same time, I think that particularly with the board here, they left a lot of room for us to control it very tightly, and listen to what the public has to say. If the public is definitely against a specific type of activity of this type, you can stop it, believe me. If you have the public support, you can stop it. Thank you very much. I didn't take up so much time.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Hello, sorry. I don't like commercial either. It just don't sound right. But my question is, how are you going to limit the noise to property line?
The question is what?
Excessive light and noise shall be not extend beyond property boundaries. How's that going to be done?
Kevin, again?
Well, we specifically met on this thing as well, and that's the problem is, you know, somebody will have to make that determination, and I think it's the public at a public hearing or the planning board itself when it reviews it, because obviously we can't afford to have specific light meters or specific noise meters. One is excessive, and I know that, you know, we discussed that. We can't set specific standards for that, but on the same hand, I think that you would be, let's say a shooting range versus an archery range. I think a shooting range, there's some, you know, if that's in a residential neighborhood, you can have a real good argument regarding excessive noise versus an archery range, which may not have excessive noise. There could be the same argument for light. What they tried to do was to give the planning board and the public the ability to challenge a venture like this on these grounds. On the same hand, though, we felt that how can you set up some specific number or some specific meter and say you can't go beyond that? So there's flexibility in here, but we wanted to specifically say that this type of business or nonprofit business can't give excessive noise and can't give excessive light.
And you folks will probably be the ones who will make that determination at a public hearing on this, you know, at some point.
Well, how is this going to be enforced?
Well, something like this would have to go before a public hearing. And then we would vote to approve the...
If it doesn't go through, and how is it, if there is a threat to noise, how is it going to be enforced?
Well, that would be the code enforcement officer's job.
A lot of things. I went on the March to Albany last year, and one of the problems that they could see down in New York City was just a driving range for golf, and the cars going in and out. That's excessive noise, screeching and all that. So there's a lot of things that should be considered. Also, this wasn't, you know, it was just in the paper. It was just that they was going to have a zoning meeting. It didn't spell out just what it was. I think this place would be full if the people knew more about this.
I would like to comment that
Your implication that it would be full with people who were primarily against this? All right. We did have set up a public hearing for this purpose. It turned out it was not legally done. We did not put it in the paper in the proper manner. Did not let people know in a proper manner. But at that meeting that was canceled, how many showed up, Claudia? 30. And every single one of those people was in favor of it. And so there is a great deal of support for this measure. There is a great deal of interest in, as Kevin has said, we're breaking new ground, and it's important to this community that we have such ordinance on the books. Yes.
Jean Conway, from the zoning board, and I just wanted to say that in the resolution you mentioned special use permit. So there's another opportunity for to add some additional regulations, and I think, you know, if this is passed tonight, we'll get the opportunity to see how it goes, and then, as Mr. McFarland says, if the zoning ordinance is in review at this point, and maybe then, along the way, some special use permit or some regulations that go along with a special use permit will be considered, thereby people also coming before the Zoning Board of Appeals as well. So.
Yes.
Karen Gould, I'm for this, but what I don't want to have happen is for this to get read differently in years to come, and then people forget about what was said here tonight, and then if it's taken wrong, and somebody else in a community in a certain area gets hurt by this. And it's like the word commercial, that bothers me, because this amendment is for recreation business. I think that word should be changed. Just like Kevin said, profit-making ventures. I'm not sure whether you should say that, but commercial seems wrong to there. And then on number 5, where it says buffering standards, that's very vague. Maybe you should have standards that's for a commercial parking lot, where that's all spelled out. Where here, it's not spelled out. If somebody wants to put something in, and you've got the board in favor of it, and the neighborhood says no, we would like trees all around to help protect us. It's kind of unsightly, and we want to protect our area, but the board is in favor of it, and the board then is going to pass it anyway, no matter what the people say. So I think that there should be a little more spelling out of things here instead of just leaving it kind of vague.
Charlie Smart. I think that is answered quite well by number 5. Buffering standards consistent with the recreational use and the neighborhood will be mandated. That addresses the problem. If it should not fit a neighborhood, it's not to be allowed.
anything else, Kevin?
I'll be glad to. As Gene said, we're in the process of going through this whole zoning matter right now. And I think that, as you know, the present plan was
we try to be very responsive to you people's suggestions. We were in the case of some things that have come before us. We'll certainly look into this further and see if as time goes on we can develop, because we're as concerned as you are about ensuring that these things are buffering, they're for the good of the community. We're not out to try to do anything that's going to cause any harm. We're trying to move forward, and it is something we can look into as time goes on.
Thank you, Dan. Yes.
My name's Bill Pierce. I don't think you'll find anybody against the use. As mentioned, like in Don Camino's, they have it in different zones, but they set different classifications for the uses. The county planning, when they got all this in December, they say your back technical assistant, that said the first question of respect should be respect to a proposed recreation business use could be whether the area should probably be zoned R1 in the first place, as the district is generally limited to a non-commercial use. It'd be just easy to set up an R3 classification or R4 classification or whatever you want to call it, opposite, and let this be in this area and zone the land to that area, to that zone, and then what you're doing now by setting this precedent that had this in an R1 zone, even though you're going to have special use permits and site plan approval, if somebody decides to take it to court and you allow that they be in one area, they had R1, and somebody else in another area had R1, and there might be $200,000 or $300,000 homes in that area, and they wouldn't want this in their neighborhood. All they got to do is go back to court and say, well, you allowed it in this neighborhood, why are you doing it down here? And when you look back through the court records, you'll find out that lots of times local people's comments don't mean nothing. When it gets up about into the appeal courts, they go by what the letter of law says, and not the public input. And I still think like when the county originally started out with, it shouldn't be an R1 zone, and then this is easy to make the classification. Right now, even though we have everybody that's for it, and now would be the time to do it, you have no opposition. So all I'm saying is, why don't we do this right? And like we say that we are in the business of updating zoning, right? If you do this for just one place here, why don't you put it on a temporary use until we get the zoning redone, where we probably could set the classification in a separate area, and then rezone these areas that want like that.
Well, I think that from talking to some of the other planning board members and the town board members, the concern that people had with allowing it to be in R1 is so that Volney could have the same type of development that they have in Radisson and in Village Green, where you can have extremely expensive homes, say situated around a golf course or tennis courts, and it would not be a detriment to the community. It would be an enhancement. It would make it easier for a developer to sell very expensive homes because they would be around an attractive recreational facility. And there are some concerns. I thought it was a very good point when you brought up maybe the thing is a lot of these zones that we have R1 should not be that. And but I think it was obvious at the meeting, there's a lot of ideas out there, and I think it's probably going to take us 6 months for everybody to come up with a good consensus about the direction on renaming zones. And so since this does have a beneficial purpose even in an R1 zone, I think this is a good way to proceed.
You're looking at a short-term thing, it's going to have long-term effects. When you keep talking at me with the golf courses, Radisson, and then this, when you're getting a planned unit development, this is included with the state instead of zoning. And that could take care of in that process of planned unit development. This we're talking about a whole different situation here. Here you're talking about R1 zone. And you're just opening up a lot of trouble. Maybe it's favorable right at this present time, but a little while down the road, is going to create a lot of problems for the boards. And we just sat in a public hearing last night where we see some problems that can develop that we're going to run into. You know, and like I say,
If the town board does its job in a way that doesn't work, it should be amended.
It should be done right, when you had no opposition, to time to do it right when you had no opposition. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes.
I believe, as worded, there is sufficient means here for a neighborhood that is against a recreational business use coming into the area to protest it, to prevent it from happening. I think this is an ordinance that will enable people to take control and have an effect on their neighborhoods and their lives and their quality of life. And I personally feel it's a very good.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. I would move the public hearing be adjourned. Do I hear a second? Byron, poll the council.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
All right. Does any of you feel that there is any need to take recess? I would now like to call the regular meeting to order. Byron, would you have the minutes show that the same members of the council are in attendance? The first resolution is resolution number 37, and I will move that the minutes of the December 10, 1992 regular meeting, having been distributed, they be approved without reading. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Byron, will you poll the council? Aye.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No, I still maintain that it wouldn't hurt to read the minutes once in a while.
Supervisor McFarland.
All right. Next, number 38, move that the minutes of the December 29, 1992 year-end meeting, having been distributed, they be approved without reading. I'll move it. Second. Any additions or corrections? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Resolution number 39, move that the minutes of the January 2, 1993 organizational meeting, having been distributed, they be approved without reading. I'll move it.
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
No.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next, number 40, I will move that vouchers numbers 1 through 21 in the amount of $34,956.38 in the general fund, and vouchers numbers 1 through 12 in the amount of $2,896.38 highway fund. Having been audited, the supervisor is authorized to pay same from funds available. Do I hear a second? Second. Any comments? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
I only do the ones I signed, and I didn't sign a bill for $2,700 for assessment services.
Says right down here that you didn't.
No, I'm making that statement.
Councilman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye to the bills that I signed, and I did not sign the one for assessment services, and I did not agree to hire the concerned.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Under communications, I had none, up until half an hour ago. Unfortunately, I just got one. You'll recognize that sort of thing. It's a summons with notice. It's from the Supreme Court, County of Oswego. It involves Marjorie C. McEwen individually and as a mother and legal guardian of Karina L. McEwen, an infant, and on her behalf. This is a result of an accident that occurred on Silk Road approximately a year ago. Is that correct? Does anybody know?
91 sometime, November, I believe.
Okay. And it's a lawsuit in the amount of $2,500,000 that will be referred to our attorney and the insurance company.
That's the only correspondence you received in that?
Yes.
There was not a letter received in the middle of December from an attorney in Syracuse, Jeffrey Scott.
In what respect? With what respect?
In respect to Diane Cole.
There was, yes.
She was asking for a favor.
Asked, that was as far as I was concerned, was a form letter asking details of her employment. These are received by employers all the time, inquiring as to when they were hired, when they left the employment, and their wages earned. I considered a form letter and responded accordingly.
But it wasn't an employer, it was an attorney seeking information, wasn't it?
It was an attorney, yes, but I had to assume he was acting for an employer.
I don't know why you would assume that, considering Diane Cole's case, but nevertheless, I think we all should have known about that. I think you should have shared that with this board.
Okay. Under committee reports, assessors. I don't see our head assessor, Faye Sanford, so Claudia, do you have a report?
I don't have a written report from Assessment Services, but they have basically are at the tail end of the process, working with the state, making sure things are coded in correctly so that the impact statements can be prepared and come out the end of February. As soon as this process is complete, then you'll see the end result of the work. You're right at the end of the process.
Thank you, Claudia. Planning Board, Kevin Conley. Our next regular meeting is going to be next Tuesday, on the 19th of January. Among the things we'll be covering at this meeting is a proposal by Cellular One to erect a transmission tower off of Pierce Drive on property owned by Mr. Larry Rowley near Container Corporation. This is one of these mobile phone type towers to improve the reception in this area. We'll also be reviewing, it'll be close to a final review of the plans for a subdivision by Mr. William Russo. It's called Roma Subdivision, and it's located on Kingdom Road. At this meeting, we will probably be making a secret determination. That's an environmental determination as to whether or not the impact of this subdivision will be significant or not. And at this time, I'd like to present a check to, I'll give it to Byron. I don't want to hold on to it too long. It's for $3,300 from Mr. Russo, and that's to cover the public hearing fee, the work fee, and I think there's about $2,000 of that is going to go towards our park fund.
Can somebody break it down so I'll know?
I will. I'll have it broken down for you. Finally, I got a call just a couple nights ago, and I don't have it written down here, but representative of a local, maybe some of you folks know that, I guess there's a church in the stage of being erected in the town, and representatives of that church will be at the meeting next Tuesday also to review the plans, to review their plans for the church. And finally, the County Planning Board, I'm in the wrong row.
The county, I'm in the wrong pew. The county planning board will be holding in the near future a series of teleconferences at the Community College of Oswego. And what they will be is they'll be regarding planning and zoning. At this, you'll be interconnected with other groups throughout the state. And these will include mock meetings, conducting of public hearings, conducting of various meetings, handling certain situations. And these will be held on a once-a-month basis. And what this is, it's a new concept, and it's designed to save money. Because in the past, you used to have to go to some city for 3 or 4 days to gather this information. And through the teleconference system, we'll be able to just drive 10 miles and be fully involved in this meeting. So that'll be coming up soon, and I'll let the town board know. Maybe some members would be interested in attending one or two of these meetings. But it should be coming up in the next month or so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. The next zoning board report, Jane.
At our meeting last night, the Zoning Board of Appeals, after much deliberation, granted a temporary use variance to Mr. and Mrs. Jayton of County Route 57 until June 15th of 1993 to put an addition on their barn. It was the opinion of the board that we grant the variance since the town had given Mr. and Mrs. Jayton permits to expand their farm in 1981 and 1988, and that the Jaytons needed shelter for their horses through the winter, otherwise risk the loss of some of the horses to illness or even death, thereby putting additional financial burden on them. If, however, they would need the use variance to be permanent, they must show in dollars and cents proof that the zoning is depriving them of all economic benefit on their property. And that was it. Our next meeting is the second Wednesday in February. Thank you.
Maybe you can get the 2 hours into a couple of minutes. Thank you, Gene. Building inspector. Ed?
In December, we issued 4 permits. Total value is about $540 for the year. We had 166 permits, and the total fees $14,433.
Thank you very much, Ed. Dog control.
Joe's not here. He is issuing a summons to a dog owner who has numerous different violations. He's the deputy sheriff is serving that at this time. And I'll make the report for Joe. During the month of December, he answered 66 calls. 3 dogs were adopted, 3 dogs were redeemed, 3 dogs were euthanized. In the course of his duties, he traveled 127 miles. At the present time, there are no complaints pending. All of the complaints that have come to him have been closed. This month, the month of December, there were 12 dogs housed at the pound at one time or another. Total number of dogs at the pound, as of this date, are 3. 6 tickets were issued. 1 misdemeanor complaint revolving around the cruelty to animals complaint, and that dog is currently in the pound at this time. And again, I would like to simply commend Joe. He's doing an outstanding job, especially for part-time situations. And again, anyone, the number is 598 dogs is the number to get a hold of Joe in that time. Voicemail number. I would put an amendment on what you just said, Jim. This announcing of our dog control officer's number, and it's appearing on television several times a week, has prompted calls from as far away as Hannibal, Fulton, and other outlying areas. I want to emphasize to our television audience that this only applies to Volney residents. And also, I also want to say, Joe does not go after cats either, just dogs. And one other thing, we still have a 24-hour meeting for Joe. we will answer, and we do expect to answer calls within a 24-hour period of time. Now, Joel will respond. Now, frequently we run into a situation where a person does not have an answering machine and Joel tries to make a telephone call. We will not respond to any calls unless the person gives his or her name. We will not respond to anonymous calls. We can't. And so I want to make that very, very clear. If you do not give your name, Joe will not respond. It's been directed not to.
Thank you, Jim. Highway Department, Byron, do you have Bob Kerping's report?
Highway Superintendent's report for December 1992. 6 days hauling ice control sand, 3 days repairing and replacing signs, 18 days maintaining machinery, 15 days plowing, 7 sanding. Wages for December 1992, $23,436.18. Supplies and machinery repair, $31,514.85. Expenditures for December 1992, $54,951.03.
Thank you, Byron. Do you have any more reports to give?
No. Mr. Supervisor, while we're on highway and Mr. Kerping isn't here, I think I'll direct this question to you. When are we going to be reviewing the Section 284 on the roads? When are we reviewing that signing?
That usually is done based on my 1 year of experience in the springtime. I'm not sure why, but that was the time frame last year in which we signed it.
Okay.
I believe it's because that way you can better assess which roads have a problem after the winter damage.
I thought that he based his budget, last year when we did the budget on the roads that we're going to need attention next year. I thought that's how we did it. I may be wrong. He's not here to tell us, so I don't know. But that's the way I understood it. You remember, Jesse, when we did it last year?
Well, it's supposed to be set up that any roads coming up that he wants to work on is what he puts in his budget.
That's what I thought.
If I remember correctly, Art, last time I was on the board, what we always did was we, in the spring, would ride around the township and we would observe the projects and so forth that Bob was going to do. That's what it was previously done. Am I correct, Jesse?
Yes, but the money that he put in his budget was the roads he wanted to work on for the following year, and then we'd ride around and inspect them to see if there was more damage than he figured or more roads needed attention.
Right.
That'll be done in the spring.
I said in April.
Okay.
It was usually done after the snow and so forth, so you could actually see what the damage was over the winter.
Okay. While we're still on the topic of highway, at the organizational meeting, you passed a resolution 93-13, moved that the highway superintendent be authorized to purchase small tools and other equipment up to the legal limit set by the state without competitive bidding. Now, I asked about that, questioned it, and you made the statement, Jim, that we can't supersede state guidelines.
No, I did not say that. I don't believe. No, I might have, but if I did, it was it was a misstatement.
Okay, well, just in case you didn't know, we can go lower than state. We just cannot go higher than state.
We cannot go over it.
Right.
If I use the term supersede, it was incorrect usage on my part.
Okay, and the state bid is $7,000, which I objected to because I thought that was a lot of money, especially when you've got down here small tools. That's a lot of money to spend on small tools. So obviously there's going to be bigger expenditures of major equipment for $7,000, and I still don't feel that anyone should have free reign of $7,000 without having a bid just to spend it the way they see. The city of Oswego has a limit of $2,000, just to give you an example of how other communities kind of control the monies that taxpayers provide us. So I still think that should be reconsidered, and I'm not going to do it tonight, but I'd like you to think about it, and I may propose another amendment to that later on.
I also wonder, too, if that $7,000 that is spoken of isn't in the aggregate and not in, as individual purchases.
That's individual purchases?
I'm not sure it says that.
I believe the state doesn't specify. It's $7,000, all it says. It doesn't say all your total purchases for the year. You can make 100 purchases of $7,000 during the course of the year.
I think we do have a control over it in that we audit his bills every month, and I think some big flags would be raised if any small tool was realizable in nature and cost, and I know you would, and I would too.
Certainly, but that's after the fact, and none of us here have the power to spend $7,000 without any of us, reviewing it and approving it, and I just don't think the highway superintendent should have that privilege either. That's all I have.
Next, committee report, recreation.
I did not get a report from Randy, and I don't see him here.
No report.
I wanted to ask one thing for Randy. He called me, he tried to get a hold of you today, I guess, Jim, and couldn't get you, so he called me. He had a question concerning the new regulations on the use of this building relevant to the recreation committee that the town recreation committee using this facility, that they have to pay the fee. I don't know what you had in mind with that as far as they're concerned, but they aren't a town entity, so to speak. They're a separate entity. I'm just wondering if they're going to be subject to that $25 use fee.
I haven't had an opportunity to think about how hard
I'll categorically say they aren't going to be, it's town related. It's town related. Absolutely not.
So by virtue of being town related, they should be exempt.
Any other committee reports?
Well, the only other one, Mr. Supervisor, is that January 27th at 7 p.m. there will be a zoning update meeting. That's the last Wednesday of January.
Okay, that does appear under future meetings at the bottom of your agenda, Chris. Any old business?
I have one item.
Yes?
At last month's meeting, I asked about the town covering expenses for conferences and so on, and I specifically mentioned the Association of Towns meeting, and you told me that if there was money in the contractual, that we could use it for that purpose. And we have $750 in the town board contractual. And I'd like to ask if I can use that to attend the Association of Towns meeting.
The $750, that money has to cover all the advertisements made in the official newspaper, and we ran short last year, and we bumped it from whatever it was to $750 simply so we would have enough money to cover those advertisements. That's principally where that money goes. So there would be no
contractual is used for newspaper articles?
Not newspaper articles, required advertisements, public notices, legal notices.
Just the ones that concern the town board posts, and not the ones that the zoning board may post.
That's correct.
So we need the whole board.
Every single monthly bill, Howard, has that broken down.
I realize that, but I'm saying we don't pay the zoning board's public hearing notices out of our contractual.
No.
Okay, so you're telling me we need $750 for those ads? I don't think we've ever spent that kind of money on those ads.
Along with other things that you buy, you spent close to that last year.
What other things did we buy? I don't recall anything we specifically bought out of our contractual.
You buy, I would assume that supplies and things of that nature, when you buy notebooks and materials, at least I believe I bought them.
I've never turned in bills for notebooks or any of those materials, and I haven't noticed you doing it either.
I ordered them through Byron, and I assume they're signed to that.
I see a lot of bills come through for Byron's office needs, but are we paying that out of our contractual? I don't think that's where that comes from.
You're only paying for what belongs to your board. Now,
Right.
I can't tell you everything that's bought and charged to your board.
But I can assure you there is not enough money for any single individual or group of individuals to attend any seminars from the town board.
Howard, may I ask a question? Why, when we did budget, didn't you bring this up and put it in the budget? You had
I
that.
did mention it, Jim. You didn't put it in the budget.
I didn't put it in the budget.
Nobody put it in the budget.
It was up to you. You were given the same exact sheet that I was given, Howard.
I did mention going to the Association of Towns this year if we should put some money in it, but I did mention that.
What I did for each department, I don't know how you did it, but I put in the dollar amount that I wanted expended for the department. I asked how much was to be put in for town board, and if I wanted monies in there, I put it on the sheet that Dave gave me. That gives an opportunity for the chief fiscal officer to prepare that budget. That should have been put in at that time.
You're right, it should have been on the sheet. I didn't put it on my sheet, but I did bring it up during discussions, and no one seemed to like the idea at the time.
I don't remember anything.
Nor do
I remember it being very vaguely mentioned, but
You could have still put it in, Howard, if whether it was accepted in the adopted budget would have been another item, but it wasn't put in.
Any other old business?
I will entertain public comment on the resolutions only. Again, even though you're known to many of us, all of us don't know you. And will you please, when you rise, state your names? Any public comment on any of these resolutions? Yes.
My name's Alan Kester. In reference to Resolution 93-41, at the bottom there on the page one, this concerns revenue that apparently is generated from people who get cable in the town.
It is not, it is a franchise fee charged to the, or that, excuse me. It is, if you have cable television, part of what you pay goes into a franchise fee that is returned to the town.
Under what authority is this franchise fee collected?
In order for any franchise, including cable television and others, they have to apply to the town to go into that town and provide their service. And in order to do that, you can charge them a franchise fee, and that is normal everywhere.
I understand that, but whose authority? Is this the town authority? The town says you must do this?
Yes.
Not.
State also.
It's state also,
It's a 3% of their net revenue.
Do they stipulate in this authority what this money is to be used for?
No. Goes into general fund.
General fund.
I see. Well, in the whereases here, there are three things here, and all three of these reasons are the reason it's being revoked?
Yes.
You think it's that using this money to fairly distribute said revenues to expand cable TV service in the town of Volney is arbitrary and discriminatory?
In the sense, and I will be glad to explain that, yes, it is.
How's it arbitrary?
Arbitrary is that an individual or committee has to select those individuals that will be able to get cable television with the extension of the line. That becomes arbitrary, because when an individual or committee can say, we will extend the line to your property, but we aren't going to extend it to yours, that's arbitrary.
Well, what if we extend to everybody who doesn't have it because of economic reasons from the cable company?
Okay, I think you should be aware, Dr. Chestner, that in order to extend cable television, it costs the cable television company $10,000 per mile to extend it.
I know.
Now, you do know that.
Well,
How much, all right, the problem then becomes, in the year 1990, we collected in franchise fees, the year this was instigated, $4,000. That would allow us to extend the cable television line 4/10 of 1 mile. And to what group of people would you extend that to? That becomes very arbitrary. Then, to continue the discriminatory, you discriminate against all the people that you do not provide it to.
That sounds like the same thing, okay. How about expend town funds that do not provide for the common good?
You are expending, in the case of the first year, $4,000 for probably 3, 4, or 5 families. I think it would be better served to put that money for the common good and not for 3 or 4 individual households.
Well, what recourse do people who live on County Route 45, for example, between Baldwin Road, for example, where there is cable, and Silk Road, for example, where there is cable, and cable goes down 45 one way and down 45 the other way, but the people sitting right there, they will probably never, ever get cable for the same economic reasons that you quoted. I mean, you know, that sounds to
That
me.
is a financial consideration of New Channel's cable TV in this area. That is their business. And if it is monetarily profitable to them, or they consider it profitable, they will extend it. However, those people also have the right to petition the cable company to supply it, and they will do it at their cost, based upon $10,000 per mile. And those homeowners would have to divvy up based upon the number that subscribe to the service.
Alan, may I also respond? My concern is, of course, I was the original town liaison when cable TV came to this community. One of my hardest working members, Larry Raleigh, sitting in the back of the room. When we established this, we ran some trunk lines across the town. The cable fee, we had, I remember, discussions on whether the fee was going to go to a general fund or whether the fee was going to go to a fund to expand the system. At that time, it was decided it would go into a general fund. I still firmly believe that that's where it should go, and I'll tell you the reasons why. I believe that there are certain services that are certainly a right of a person. One certainly is electrical service and telephone service and so forth. Cable TV is, from my point of view, not a right. It is a something that a person can pay for. It's not something that's a necessity. And I can say this very commonly because I happen to live on a road that does not have cable TV and may never have cable TV. But if I want it, I have the option of expending the dollars to bring it to my home. That's my choice, and the people are there because I choose to live where I do. And it's not something that I feel is a responsibility of all the town taxpayers to pay for my cable TV. Those of you that have it paid for your own, you brought it in, you paid your money, and you have it. I don't feel that it's my responsibility to pay for yours, nor yours to pay for mine. And so I feel very strongly that it is arbitrary and discriminatory to put that money into that fund and not to put it into the general fund to lower everyone's taxes, yours included.
The reason I asked is I thought there was more money there, just for starters. I was blessed with cable about a year and a half ago. I missed the war in the Gulf on CNN, so, you know.
So did I, and because I'm still missing it. I missed it last night, too.
I thought there was more money involved. One other thing, on this, I may be off on a tangent here, but on resolution number 93-45, talking about the establishment of extension for Larry Rowley's Glen Water District, are we talking here about extending a water line farther into the Glen? Is that what this is about?
Yes and no. The hearing is one, well, let me back up. These rights of extension of water and sewer have already been established by a previous board. And this is simply we are going through the legal motions of providing a public hearing before it actually proceeds. If that, is that enough of an answer?
Well, I may be getting outside here. What I'm asking, I suppose, is that this is a residential area in the town of Volney that is being supplied with water by the city of Fulton. Is that correct?
That is correct.
With no charge to the town of Volney. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Would you know right off the top of your head what Mr. Rowley and the people who live there have to give the city of Fulton for this water service and this sewer service?
I believe the citizens pay for their own, pay for the water, and I believe Larry Rowley, as part of the construction of the project, puts in the sewer lines at his own expense.
When this was put in, did the city of Fulton get anything more tangible than money?
I can't answer that.
They didn't get any land from the town of Volney?
Oh, absolutely.
Any other?
Oh, no.
As far as I know, the only thing they're getting is the fees collected on their water.
believe it's 165%. Is that right? Is it 100? It's 125 plus a 40% maintenance fee on it. So it's 100.
They make 65% for
There's a
that.
premium for.
There's a premium
Yeah,
for it.
premium,
Thank you.
While we're commenting on that resolution 9341, I'd like to respond a little bit on this also. I was the one that made the.
Howard, excuse me, this is public comment. You can comment on it after it's been seconded.
Jim commented to Mr. Kestner himself.
They are the public, we are not the public.
I know, Jim just commented about that particular topic to Dr. Kestner. I'd like to do the same if I could.
All right.
I made that resolution 3 years ago, and it was passed by the town board then. Unfortunately, it wasn't honored, and the money never went to the special fund that we established for it. And probably the reason it's being trashed now is because it was my resolution. But I want to just comment on a few things. First of all, Jim, you were on the committee when this formed, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, when you formed this and you invited the cable company into this town to bring cable TV here, was it in mind of becoming a source of revenue for the town or a source of benefit to the whole community? What was your idea on that when you did
Was
that?
being brought in, there were people that wanted it brought into the town. Therefore, those that, and the cable company saw it as a financially feasible venture, and it was a benefit to the town, and it certainly is something that we brought in, but it was paid for by the people that got it. And that was the point. We ran the trunk lines across the town, up 6. We ran 57. We ran 57 down River Road and so forth. We ran the trunk lines so that as population increased, people would be able to get the service, and that was what we did. We ran the trunks, but we felt that people should have the population density, or they could always pay for it themselves if they wanted.
Well, as you well know, most people cannot afford it, including yourself, I'm sure, to bring it all the way out to your house. It would probably never happen without any kind of assistance. And if your intention was to benefit the whole community, I would think you would have considered my resolution as just what that would do is follow up on it. Well, first of all, it's not the taxpayers' money. It is the money generated by the cable TV. It's not theirs until we give it to them.
And
It's
it
a gift
goes
to the
back
town.
into the general fund.
It was a gift to the town. You put it in the general fund, which you can do. But we can also use it to further cable in this town to benefit everybody as a whole.
Who are you going to benefit, Howard?
Who's going to benefit? The
Who
people.
are you going to benefit? Who's going to be the first one? Because the next person that didn't get it is going to say, hey, wait a minute. How come they got it and I didn't? And for $4,000, you're going to go half a mile a
We don't
year.
make that decision, Jim. The cable company would make that decision the same way they make their decisions now, based on density. The denser areas will get it first.
Oh, absolutely not.
That is the only fair way to do it.
Okay, it says before, this is public comment. These discussions can take place when the
The people may like to
resolution
hear
is
our
seconded.
comments so that they can comment, Mr. Supervisor. They
Excuse
can't
me.
comment when we talk about the resolution.
Howard. Out of order. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Phil Valley, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse here. But what you said earlier in the meeting, that people as far away as Hannibal are calling up about our dog catcher or whatever. I have people commenting to me at work as far away as Fairhaven on our cable network. You know, I live around the corner, I can't get cable. I'm one of those people that live on between Silk and Baldwin. I don't care. I could care less if I have cable. It's a shame I can't get it. But it just seems a little bit ludicrous to me that we sit here and we argue about things like this. I think it would be good if that money went, I don't care what it costs. I called the cable company. It's not $10,000 a mile. I don't know who you talk to. I got a quote of $1,000 a foot. I don't know how many feet per mile you think are in a mile, or how much that would, yeah, 5,280 feet, I know. But it's not that much, and that's not the point. But the point I'm trying to make is that I get feedback from people as far away as New Haven, and I'm not only embarrassed and humiliated about what goes on in this board, but it just gets a little bit tiring that we have conversations like this. It's stupid, in my words, that we're going to sit here and argue about somebody did this and somebody did that, and damn it. Now, to me, it would seem reasonable to, I don't care if it's cable or what it is to just do something for once that has a little common sense behind it. Thank you.
To clarify one thing, I do have a document here from the cable company just received a few days ago. It is a copy of a letter to a Volney resident in which it is specifically stated that the cost per mile is $10,000. Yes.
My name is Lorraine Austin. I too would like to just comment on that resolution regarding cable TV. I was on the board and I voted for this resolution because the night that we had a group of people come in that were really concerned, they wanted the lines extended because they felt that they were being discriminated against because some people had cable TV like the Glen and 57 and Route 6 and other ones didn't. And we were trying to resolve this, and Rodney Moss come to that meeting, and one of the things that he suggested is taking the revenue money that we were getting from them to put into a fund to extend the lines, and not to pay for the entire extension. Obviously, that's not going to cover the cost. And what they suggested doing is like they do with a water district, getting a group of people to petition, come together, and use that money to offset the extension of the lines, not to pay for the entire coverage. If you get 30, 40 people in a group that come in here and want to extend the lines, I think that's what that money should be used for. And that was the solution to the problem at the time. Since that money has been collected, I don't know if there's been any extension of cable TV or not. Can anyone answer that?
Yes.
There has been, and that's been paid for by the people themselves that wanted it, by the cable company.
The density was there, so the cable company expanded the roads. I think one was Flood Drive, one was Weller Road.
Silk Road.
Silk
Because
Road.
it had only gone down just past Rowley Road, and then they took it down past 45. It's down past 45.
Is there a minimum amount that they have to have before they will extend? Let's say we have one.
23 people, no, there's no minimum rate, but there are 23 people per mile, I believe. It is now, Jim. Well, but I believe it's 23 hard at no cost. They'll do it very, very reasonable with 18, but.
Okay, so let's say 23 is the minimum, right? So let's say 18 people come in, they're lacking 5 people. Why can't you take that 3,000 to offset that cost to extend that? That was the purpose of it. So instead of them having to pay the 3,000 in themselves, you would take that fund, put that money, and give that to the people to extend that.
How many households did you say you would want to use that money for?
If they're lacking, like I say, you did a group of 23. You said you have to have 23 and there's no cost. Let's say 18 people come in and they're lacking the group to extend that. So why can't they take that? Or let's say there's 20 people that come in. For 3 houses, you take the $3,000 and extend the lines.
The problem, and this is where it becomes very arbitrary, in that you will be spending thousands of dollars to help 3, 4, or 5 families. And that money should be for the welfare of the whole town, not for a few families. And that's where I feel it's very arbitrary.
The whole town eventually will benefit the whole town. That's the whole purpose.
That's right, they keep doing it until it helps everybody.
And then everybody is treated fairly.
Literally hundreds of miles, or not hundreds of miles, but many miles. It would be into the next century before cable could be run that far. I would also like to comment that you will probably see in a very few years that cable per se as a means of transmission of your programs will be a thing of the past. It will probably be done through discs, through microwave towers, and the reception through cable line will probably be a thing of the past. That's what I've been.
And it'll probably be on that they'll have to extend it to people, and you'll be arguing about something new. But at the time, it seems feasible that you would take this money to extend these lines if you can, because there is people that are interested in wanting it. That was the whole purpose of the motion, and just to revoke it for $3,000, I don't see how that's going to save much tax dollars money. I think we ought to reconsider revoking this motion.
Yes.
Just so everybody at home doesn't think that everybody here thinks we ought to spend that money to extend cable for 2 families. I'm dead against it. We didn't have it for several years. I wasn't willing to spend the money to do it. I wasn't willing to do it until it came down on its own, and I don't think that any money that I pay or anyone else in the town should extend that to me or anyone else. I think the money is better served, the town's better served by having that money go into the general funds, which benefits each and every citizen of the town, not just a handful at any particular time.
For raises, maybe?
Any other public comment? Yes.
If I could answer that comment, my name's Alan Kestner again. I worked hard to get cable out there. I mean, the neighbors built houses, which helped, but I was hounding Rod Moss all the time, saying, you know, when's cable coming? When's cable coming? The reason I wanted cable was not so I could watch CNN, wasn't so I could watch Nickelodeon, was so I could watch television. Now, to me, I was not brought up on television, so I'm not, I don't, but I would still argue that it's relatively essential, not as essential as electricity necessarily, or natural gas. I don't have natural gas at my house either. But I got cable TV so I could watch television, because I'm sitting in some dead spot. I cannot get channel 24 from Syracuse. I can get channel 3, 5, and 9. I put an antenna up, it blew down. We get 60-mile-an-hour winds out there, and it blew down. So I wouldn't quite put this in the category of a luxury. There are some people here who cannot get television reception with normal reception means, and it's a thorny problem.
Any more?
Just to answer that specifically, 20 years ago, I spent $180 on a rooftop antenna with a rotor to get 10 cable reception. Today, for under $1,500, you can buy a satellite dish just to get television as you go.
Anything else? Yes.
Barbara McEwen. I think Resolution 9347 is very fair, and I hope that the board is fit to pass it. It came about primarily because of Bristol Hill Church, and Bristol Hill is a very small church and is trying to build a building program, and at their fundraisers they only raised about $40, and if they have to pay $25, that leaves them $15, and I don't even know if you can buy a can of paint for that. So this amount here sounds very reasonable and doable for the Bristol Hill Church, and I hope the board finds it in their heart to pass it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Let's move on to the resolutions. First one, number 41. Whereas it is in the best interest of the town to revoke previous resolutions that 1, are arbitrary and discriminatory, 2, expends town funds that do not provide for the common good, and 3, appropriates revenue that is unrealistic relative to those benefiting from its expenditure. Therefore, I will move that the motion adopted March 8, 1990 as follows be revoked.
I second it for discussion.
Revenue received from Fulton New Channel since January 1, 1990 be put into the general fund and frozen from being used for any other expenditures until such time as a plan can be devised to fairly distribute said revenues to expand cable TV service in the town of Volney.
Again, I'll second it for discussion.
All right.
First of all, I spoke with Rod Moss yesterday after our conversation at our work session Tuesday. Since 1990, when I proposed this, we have taken in $35,000 in franchise fees, which would have covered approximately 10 miles or more, according to Rod Moss, because this $10,000 per mile figure you quoted may be something that an individual would pay, but not when you're working with the cable company in conjunction with us, because it would be considered a subsidy that we would be doing, and they would work out different things and different ways of doing it, so it wouldn't cost what it would normally cost to do that. Okay. You mentioned lines versus these dishes that are supposedly coming down the pipe. Rod Moss informed me that they wouldn't have invested the money they did in New Haven recently if this is the kind of thing that's going to take place in the near future. It's a long way down the road, according to him. Jim mentions that it's a privilege. Well, it was a privilege at one time in this town to have your road plowed, and now everyone expects it. It's a necessity. And so we've got to get with the times, I think, on that. The other thing is that people are watching cable TV as far away as Fairhaven, watching this town board meeting every week. And there's people in this town that can't watch this town board meeting because they don't have cable. So there are a lot of good reasons to do this. The other one, you were concerned about revenues and putting it in our general fund. Well, if everyone in this town had cable TV, there would be a lot more revenues than we have now. Out of 2,100 households that have this available, or that could have this available, 1,600 are already serviced. So there's only 500 households that are left, which is, we've almost got 3/4 of the town covered already. So there isn't that much more to go, like you say there is. Maybe in miles there is, but not in households. And that could be taken care of within the next 8 to 10 years, according to Rod Moss. That's not very far away. And if we'd started this 3 years ago, like I proposed, we'd be a good share of the way there. So I submit to you that we keep that resolution intact and do something about it. The only thing stopping it is political will. If you really feel, Jim, that you wanted to do this for the good of the community, then you would do it for the good of the community. Not just the ones that were lucky enough to live in densely populated areas that could get it readily and quickly, and forget about the ones that live too far out because they don't count. You know, you want to talk about being arbitrary and whatever else you said there, discriminatory. You didn't seem to be too concerned about the people that could not afford taxes back in November when you voted a 59% tax increase.
Well, that's not the issue. We're talking about this particular resolution. If I may respond, Howard, just very, very quickly. First of all, you had control of the board for 2 years. You had monies in there. Apparently, there must have been 28,000, according to you, or some odd figure that went in there, because $35,000, I have never seen that particular figure.
Well, who got it? I didn't get no $35,000 from the new channels, and I get every check that comes into this building. Somebody's padding their pockets for $35,000.
Let me clarify the money that we have received in franchise fees. This is a very specific account. All you have to do is, and you could have done it without going to Rodney Moss, but I didn't go back beyond 1990 when this was, and we've had cable television prior to 1990, so I don't know what the numbers are. But in 1990, we received $4,466. In 1991, $6,002, and in 1992, $7,618, for a total of almost $18,000. Now, that would allow 1.8 miles, and if Rodney Moss says it is another figure, then he is belying his own letter and statement to the resident of the town, in which he says the cost per mile is $10,000 for construction of new cable.
You're speaking to an individual there. I'm talking about working with the town. It's a different story.
Well, the town is not going to string cable.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about sharing the cost of it with the cable company, and they will consider it a subsidy and do more with the money, is what I'm saying. They will do more for the dollar.
Well, I'm sure Rodney Boss would love that. I don't think any businessman in the world would enjoy having a town subsidize their business, and that's basically what it boils down to. Is there any other discussion by the board? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
No.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
I have to vote no, because when this was set up, we planned on taking different areas to expand, once we had some money.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Resolution number 42. Whereas the town of Volney previously authorized $500 to fund its share of a 3-municipality pre-plan commissioned by the Fulton Area Partnership and conducted by East-West Planning and Development, and whereas the preliminary State of the Area report, as presented and discussed on December 16, 1992, recommends a detailed infrastructure study and a fiscal analysis be prepared, said services to be covered within their existing contract scope, that is, the $500 we have already spent to this East-West Associates. Now therefore, be it resolved that Volney Town Board, in conjunction with the town of Granby and the city of Fulton, having reviewed the study proposals, recommends proceeding within the existing contract scope and amount to seek financing for studies proposed. And I'll move it. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
I'll vote no because I didn't vote for the original proposal because we didn't have the money. I don't know where it came from, but
Councilwoman Mark.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
I'll vote aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next resolution, number 43, it's a bond resolution of January 14, 1992, authorizing the issuance and sale of serial bonds of the town of Volney for the construction of a salt shed in the amount of $26,000. This must be read. I will read it very fast. Be it resolved this 14th day of January 1993 by the Town Board of the Town of Volney, Oswego County, New York, as follows. Section 1, the purpose for which the obligations authorized by this resolution are to be issued is the construction of a salt shed for the use of the Town of Volney. Section 2, the plan for financing the total cost of such purpose consists of the issuance of general obligation serial bonds of the said Town of Volney in the principal amount of $26,000, which bonds and such amounts are hereby authorized. Section 3, general obligation serial bonds of the said town, the principal amount of $26,000 are authorized to be issued for the purpose aforesaid pursuant to the provisions of the local finance law of the state of New York. Payment obligation shall commence on January 15, 1993 and continue until January 14, 1994. The remaining period of probable usefulness of such object or purpose is 3 years pursuant to Section 11, Subdivision A, subparagraph 35 of the local finance law. Section 4, the bonds herein authorized shall be of such terms, form, and content as the supervisor of the town of Volney shall prescribe, consistent, however, which the terms of this resolution and the provisions of the local finance law. Section 5, when said bonds shall have been duly sold, the same shall be delivered by the supervisor of the town of Volney to the purchaser upon payment by the purchaser of the purchase price, including accrued interest. Section 6, the full faith and credit of the said town of Volney are hereby irrevocably pledged to the payment of the principal of said bonds and interest thereon when due. Section 7, there has been provided in current funds prior to the issuance of bonds or bond anticipation notes a sum sufficient to pay at least 5% of the entire estimated cost of such object or purpose in accordance with Section 107 of the local finance law. Section 8, this resolution is intended as a renewal of a bond resolution of the town boards of the town of Volney dated January 9, 1992, which authorized issuance of serial bonds in the total amount of $52,000 with a 1-year maturity. Section 9, the resolution shall take place January 15, 1993. I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose. Aye. Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. I'm very happy that this is the last year, and next year, and at this point in time, we will have paid it off, and we don't have to go through this again. And number 44, bond anticipation note resolution dated January 14, 1993 for issuance and sale of notes of the town of Volney, Oswego County, New York, in anticipation of the sale of $26,000 serial bonds for the construction of a salt shed. Whereas the town board of the town of Volney, Oswego County, New York, has heretofore and on the 14th day of January 1993 duly adopted a resolution authorizing the issuance of certain serial bonds in the amount of $26,000 for the purpose of covering the cost of the construction of a salt shed for the use of the town of Volney. Said resolution to become effective January 15, 1993. And whereas there are no bond anticipation notes outstanding which have been previously issued in anticipation of the sale of the aforesaid bonds, and whereas it has been determined that the best interests of the town of Volney will be served if bond anticipation notes be issued in anticipation of the sale of the aforesaid bonds. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the town board of the town of Volney, Oswego County, New York, as follows. 1, that in anticipation of the sale of serial bonds authorized to be issued in the aggregate principal amount of $26,000, said sale having been authorized to be issued by a bond resolution of this town board adopted January 14, 1993, entitled Bond Resolution of January 14, 1993, authorizing the issuance and sale of serial bonds of the town of Volney for the construction of a salt shed in the amount of $26,000. There are hereby authorized to be issued and sold bond anticipation notes of the town in the aggregate principal amount of not exceeding $26,000 for the purpose of raising funds for the cost of the construction of a salt shed for the said town. Such bond anticipation notes hereby authorized shall be renewal notes of bond anticipation notes previously authorized for the same purpose with a term of January 17, 1992 through January 17, 1993. Order that the town clerk shall cause to be printed a certified copy of this resolution / order at least once in the official newspaper of the town of Volney, the first publication thereof to be not less than 10 days nor more than 20 days before the date set for the hearing described herein, and the said town clerk is further ordered to cause a certified copy of said resolution / order to be published on the signboard of the town of Volney, maintained pursuant to section 36 of the town law. Said posting be not...
Wait up, back up on the page 4.
I going?
You skipped page 4.
Ah!
We get two resolutions
We got two
together.
resolutions together. Sorry about that. Section...
Good boy. Number 2.
Oh, the supervisor. I skipped over. 2. Pardon me. That the supervisor of the town is hereby authorized to sell at a private sale the renewal bond anticipation notes herein authorized to be issued at the prevailing interest rate. Such notes may be sold and delivered at one time or from time to time, and if sold at different times, they shall be dated as of the respective dates of issue. Each of said notes shall mature not later than 1 year from the date of issue of the first note sold and delivered pursuant to the provisions of this resolution, subject to such right of redemption as may be provided by the local finance law. The denomination and all other terms, details, and contents of said notes, including provision for redemption, shall be determined by the supervisor of the town. That said bond anticipation note shall be signed by the supervisor and shall have the seal of the town affixed thereto and attested by the town clerk. That the full faith and credit of said town be and the same hereby are irrevocably pledged to the punctual payment of the principal of and interest on said notes as the same become due and payable. 5, that said bond anticipation notes are not issued in anticipation of bonds for an accessible improvement. 6, that this resolution shall take effect January 15, 1993. I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Now we'll get to that one I jumped over to. Resolution number 45. Whereas Larry E. Rowley has presented to the town board of the town of Volney a petition for the establishment of extension number 1 for the Glenwater District, and whereas said petition is made pursuant to Article 12 of the town law, and whereas Larry E. Rowley is the sole owner of taxable and assessed real property situate within the proposed extension number 1 for the Glenwater District, and whereas the real property within extension number 1 for the Glenwater District is wholly situate within the said town of Volney, and whereas the legal description of the real property within extension number 1 for the Glenwater District is more particularly described on Schedule A annexed hereto, and whereas the proposed cost of the town of Volney for the improvements specified in the petition and the cost of services to be provided by the town of Volney is none, now therefore be it resolved as follows, that the town board of the town of Volney accepts for filing with the town clerk the petition for establishment of extension number 1 of the Glenwater District in the town of Volney as presented by Larry E. Rowley. And be it further resolved that the town board shall meet in public session on February 11, 1993 at 7 p.m. at the Volney Town Hall to conduct a public hearing and consider said petition and hear all persons interested in the subject matter of said petition. And be it ordered that the town clerk shall cause to be printed a certified copy of this resolution / order at least once in the official paper of the town of Volney, the first publication thereof to be not less than 10 days nor more than 20 days before the date set for the hearing described herein, and the said town clerk is further ordered to cause a certified copy of said resolution / order to be published on the signboard of the town of Volney, maintained pursuant to section 30, paren 6, paren of the town law. Said posting to be not less than 10 days nor more than 20 days before the designated for the public hearing as aforesaid, and be it further resolved that the aforesaid petition is made pursuant to Article 12 of the town law, and be it further resolved that this resolution / order is made pursuant to section 913 of the town law. I'll move it. Second. Any discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose. Aye. Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Next, resolution number 46. Whereas Larry E. Rowley has presented to the town board of the town of Volney a petition for the establishment of Glen 2 Sanitary Sewer District, and whereas said petition is made pursuant to Article 12 of the town law, and whereas Larry E. Rowley is the sole owner of taxable and assessed real property situated within the proposed Glen 2 Sanitary Sewer District, and whereas the real property within the Glen 2 Sanitary Sewer District is wholly situated within the said town of Volney, and whereas the legal description of the real property within the Glen 2 Sanitary Sewer District is more particularly described on Schedule A, Annexed Here 2, and whereas the proposed cost of the town of Volney for the improvements specified in the petition and the cost of services to be provided by the town of Volney is none, now therefore be it resolved as follows, that the town board of the town of Volney accepts for filing with the town clerk the petition for establishment of the Glen 2 Sanitary Sewer District in the town of Volney as presented by Larry E. Rowley. And be it further resolved that the town board shall meet in public session on February 11, 1993 at 7 p.m. at the Volney Town Hall to conduct a public hearing and consider said petition and hear all persons interested in the subject matter of said petition. And be it ordered that the town clerk shall cause to be published a certified copy of this resolution/order at least once in the official newspaper of the town of Volney. The first publication thereof to be not less than 10 days nor more than 20 days before the date set for the hearing described herein. And the said town clerk is further ordered to cause a certified copy of said resolution/order to be published on the signboard of the town of Volney, maintained pursuant to section 30(6) of the town law. Said posting to be not less than 10 days nor more than 20 days before the day designated for the public hearing as aforesaid. And be it further resolved that the aforesaid petition is made pursuant to Article 12 of the town law, and be it further resolved that this resolution/order is made pursuant to section 193 of the town law. I will move it. Any discussion? Byron, poll the council.
Councilman Ridgway.
Aye.
Councilman Rose. Aye. Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. The next resolution was proposed by Howard Rose, and I will let him read it.
Whereas it is the desire of the town board to continue to make available the facilities at the Volney Municipal Building to all not-for-profit persons, groups, and organizations, and whereas the Association of Towns Council and the State Controller's Counselors have stated that towns may make available their facilities to private parties so long as, 1, it is available to all on an equal basis, and 2, the adequate and fair compensation is received from for the use of those facilities. Therefore, I move that the use of the facilities at the Volney Municipal Building be made to all not-for-profit persons, groups, and organizations subject to the following conditions. 1, all requests are to be made to the town clerk in writing stating the nature of the use intended and the naming of responsible persons. Requests to be honored on a first-come, first-served basis according to a calendar to be kept by the town clerk and posted in the municipal building. The town clerk has the authority to approve or deny all requests. However, any refusal of the facilities by the town clerk, other than as a result of a date conflict, shall be brought to the attention of the town board by the supervisor at the next regular town board meeting for review. Non-resident users will be required to pay a fee consisting of 2 checks, each in the amount of $25 made payable to the town of Volney. Shall accompany each request. The 1 check is the town's compensation for the use of the facilities. The second is refunded providing the facility is in the same physical condition relative to order and cleanliness. Any damage during the facility's use will be the responsibility of the parties using it. 3, resident users will be required to pay a $1 per year user fee plus the refundable $25 deposit per use, which can be held for the year in case of multiple use requests. 4, all town-sponsored, local government-related functions are exempt from any fees. Other governments, county, state, and federal, and their agencies who request use for a purpose intended primarily for Volney residents will also be exempt from any fees. Other governments and their agencies requesting use for any other purposes are subject to town board review and may be subject to fees and deposits stated above. The above resolution supersedes all other resolutions and amendments on use of town facilities and is effective immediately upon an affirmative vote of the board. And before anyone if anyone's going to second this, I'd like to just explain quickly what I did here. This is essentially...
Are you going to move it, Howard?
I'll move it.
I'll second
For discussion, okay. I'd just like to say that this is essentially the same resolution that was passed last month. I made some changes relevant to who can use it Before, it was only addressing organizations. I changed it to read persons and groups, because I felt that we can't eliminate groups or individuals from using this town hall. I feel if someone wants to come in here and present something to the town on his own or her own, should have use of this town hall. And also groups shouldn't be excluded, so I changed that. The other thing was the fees involved. I was particularly concerned about the Boy Scouts who use this facility once a week, and $25 a week is going to pretty much eliminate them from using this building. And I think groups like that, or anybody in this town, a $1 user fee will comply with the requirements of the state as far as reasonable return on the use of the building, and I consider that reasonable in the fact that we aren't trying to make a profit on this building. This is the people's building. They paid for it with their tax dollars, and I think they should be able to use it in a reasonable manner after review for any reasons not to allow it. So, anyone have any questions on that?
I will comment on it. Your second paragraph, you made a quotation. I am assuming that that quotation is from Mr. Crawford's letter to me from the Association of Towns Council, and that you have made a very significant change in that quotation, as I told you the other night, Howard. That quotation states that towns make available their facilities to private parties so long as, etc. Now, through the word facilities. However, you did make one significant change in that quotation. You change organizations to parties. Now, private parties are individuals. You continue in the next paragraph to state again, not-for-profit persons. I don't frankly know what a not-for-profit person is or a for-profit person, but you cannot open this facility to individuals. You just can't do it. Groups and organizations, yes, I'm all for it. You skip down to point 3, resident users will be required to pay $1 per year user fee, plus the refundable $25 deposit per use. What is that basically saying is that any single individual in the town of Volney can come in here, give the town clerk $1 and a $25 deposit, and have this facility available to them at any point in time. I do not think that's what the intent of this board or this town has for the use of this facility. Then the paragraph 4 is extremely ambiguous in several respects. You refer to that all town-sponsored and local government-related functions are exempt from any fees. Other governments, county, state, and federal, and their agencies who request use for a purpose intended primarily for Volney residents will also be exempt from any fees. Well, there are many government groups that want to meet here that are not relating to town of Volney business, but are using this fine facility for their meetings. But it does not necessarily relate to town of Volney business. And then you state other governments, and very frankly, I don't know what other governments there are other than local, county, state, and federal. And then they are subject to review by the town board of their requirements. I feel there are enough flaws in this that I must vote against it.
Okay, let me just explain one thing. First of all, you say you don't think individuals should be able to use this. I want to tell you, 3 years ago, before I was on, or 4 years ago, before I was on this town board, I had a concern in this town that did not get addressed by this town board at the time, and that was the issue of the incinerator, which is in my neighborhood, and all my neighbors were concerned about it. We couldn't get the use of this town hall at the time. We had to go to the city of Fulton to use their municipal building to present our case. We had a scientist from St. Lawrence University, Dr. Paul Kahn, who has been in this room before, but at your meetings, not his. And he spoke on another opinion and view of incineration in a community, which people would never have gotten if I didn't take the incentive to do that. Now, what you're doing by effectively, if you vote against this, is you're saying that an individual like myself trying to do something for his community and present an issue to the people is going to be denied use of this town hall for that. And I think that's wrong. I think individuals should be able to use this for a good reason. And we do have discretion here. They have to present in writing what it's going to be used for. And if we don't feel it's appropriate, we can deny them use of it if it's not a good enough reason to use the town hall and warrant it. Also, you say other governments. I clearly state in there what I meant. County, state, and federal is other governments. So that's what I'm referring to. And other governments have used this town hall for things that have nothing to do with this town whatsoever. And people in this town were not even remotely interested in what they were doing here. Yet they got to use it at no charge. And you're saying that people that live here that pay taxes, that paid for this building, can't use it. I don't understand that reasoning at all. So that's why I encourage it. So do what you will, but I think that our purpose is to serve the people of this community, and we've got a nice facility. I think they should be able to utilize it as much as they want, as long as it's within reason. And if you want to deny them that, that's your privilege.
I'm not denying organizations. I'm just saying, Howard, that individuals can, according to this resolution, simply pay $1 and have the use of the facility anytime they want it.
So you're saying people in a system, but individuals who pay taxes individually are going to be denied that use unless they are part of a system. Is that correct?
Unless they represent an organization.
Why do you have to represent anything? Why, if you're a taxpayer that paid for this building, why do you have to represent anybody to use this building?
Because it opens it up to any individual. I don't care what individual, who they are, where they live in the town, for whatever purpose they want to use it. They have the right to use it according to this resolution. And I just don't think that is correct.
The way you've written this, they could have Satan worshipers, neo-Nazis, any kind of... Really? The way you wrote this, Howard, baloney. The way you've written this, you said all persons. It doesn't have to be a recognized, not-for-profit group.
It has to be approved, Claudia. I didn't say just blanket anybody, no questions asked. They have to be
You're
approved,
going to get down in a very awkward situation with being sued by different groups because why did you allow one and not the other?
I don't think so.
Well, I do.
Any other discussion?
David, will this impact at all the city's, or on the town's liability insurance, opening it up to more groups more often? I don't know what your blanket liability is, but I just wondered if you have coverage, adequate coverage.
People wouldn't be here tonight if that was a concern, because you're here. I don't think we're going to be worried about our liability insurance because you're here, any more than we would if anyone else were here that was a citizen.
This is a governmental meeting. We have a town board. We have a responsibility.
Our policy doesn't say it only covers governmental meetings for use of this building, does it?
I do.
I doubt it too.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor,
Yes.
can I say something?
Yes.
Up until 2 months ago, when this other resolution was passed, this municipal building has been used by a lot of organizations and by individuals upon request and issued by the town clerk, private people. And now we're saying people in the town would like to use it, and you're saying no. Up until 2 months ago, since the building has been open, upon request, anybody has been able to use this building.
Jess, would you give me some examples, because I don't ever
You
recollect.
have to go dig up the old calendar, Jim. I was up here before this last resolution. There was Saturday, there was some kind of a graduation party going on. I don't know who it was for.
It was children that were home-educated, programmed through the county.
Right now listed on the calendar, there's CPR courses. Who's putting the CPR course on? It doesn't say Oswego
Red Cross
County.
is putting it on for county workers for Oswego County Opportunities. They've been doing it for years.
See,
I'm saying
now,
individuals.
we're
Jess.
outside
I need
we're
individuals.
outside of government bodies. The Red Cross is putting it on.
Excuse me, no, you're wrong. The Red Cross is putting it on for Oswego County Opportunities, which is a government funded agency.
Then the county should have asked for the request.
Which also has nothing to do with the town of Volney. It's Oswego County Opportunities.
That is correct.
Okay. So, in other words, outsiders can come in and use it for free, but residents have to pay.
As long as it is connected with government and whatever level of government is government related. Yes.
Howard, maybe I'm wrong, but I always understood that My hometown was Volney. My home county was Oswego, state New York, country the United States. And I don't understand where, if you say it's not for use of Volney, well, I have a feeling that if I'm a part or a member of this county, then I'm involved there also. And if any of these organizations, I'm as a citizen of this country and state and town, then I feel that that covers it. And I believe that those agencies do affect me.
You're also a citizen of planning.
2 months ago, I voted against this resolution because there was a fee tagged on for nonprofit organizations. And that's the reason why I voted against it.
Any other discussion? Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway.
Nay.
Councilman Rose.
Aye.
Councilwoman Smart.
No.
Councilman Warner.
Yes.
Pardon?
Yes.
Yes, I didn't hear you. Supervisor McFarland.
No. The last resolution, number 48. Whereas the town planning board met on December 23, 1992, and recommended approval of a new zoning category under business uses, recreation business, to the Oswego County Planning Board. Is there any reason for me to read this again?
No.
No. Okay. Is there any discussion by the town board?
Yes, I'd like to make a few comments. First of all,
Let's get a motion first.
Okay, I will move it then.
I'll second it for discussion. First of all, I'd just like to state that I haven't heard anyone object to Roger Dunsmore using his property for the purpose that he intends. And I like this concept of the recreation business use very much. But I still think it's too vague, and it leaves too much open to interpretation. And my concern there is not so much with our present planning board, because I think they're a very good planning board, and I'm sure they'll do the right thing. But that doesn't mean in the future we're going to have a planning board that will. And it leaves it open to too much flexibility, I think. I'd like to have Kevin's faith in public hearings catering to the people. As we witnessed last November, an overwhelmingly number of people here voiced their concern about a budget increase, and it just got this. So I don't share that same concern about public hearings serving the people all the time. Mr. Storing's comments on people knowing about it, and they might be here if they knew more about it, and I think you're right. I don't think it would be because they would be against Mr. Dunsmore. I think it would be because they were concerned about something going in their neighborhood, which may be residential R1, and not wanting it to happen and feeling that they wouldn't get any satisfaction from the town board, planning or zoning board in that regard, and that's why they would probably be here. So that's one thing. The other thing, Charlie says it's addressed, Charlie Smart says it was addressed very well in here, number 5 on buffering standards, yet I don't know anywhere in our zoning where it specifically tells what those buffering standards are. So this doesn't address anything as far as I'm concerned. Once again, it's flexible. They can make those standards whatever they want them to be. And this present town planning board, I think, would do the right thing, but I don't know about future planning boards, so I'm not sure that that's really going to cover it. Signage shall be consistent with the characteristics of signs for commercial development permitted in that specific zone. And an R1 sign, I believe the largest sign you can have is 2 square feet, 1 foot by 2 foot. That's a pretty small sign. And if you've got a commercial establishment there, that's not going to carry much weight as far as identifying the business that's in there. And as a matter of fact, the sign that's there now is bigger than that. And would that mean that would have to come down? I hope not. The other thing, scale of buildings shall be limited to a size comparable to and compatible with the size of existing buildings in the area of the proposed use. This building I think is going to be pretty good size, which probably isn't going to fit that description. And so it seems to me that this could go against Roger if we put that in there. And it could be challenged later on by someone that says that's a really big building and it doesn't fit this neighborhood. I have to agree with what Bill said, and also what Claudia said the other night about we do have the diversity of areas in this town that are definitely R1, and some that are a mixture of residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and I think that area is one of those because it does look agricultural, and it is residential. It's near the airport. It could be even industrial in time. I think this R3 thing that you mentioned, Claudia, is a better idea to address this situation. And I think we could probably push it through quicker and protect the rest of the town from something that may not be in everyone's best interest in the future. So I'd just like you to consider those things too before you vote. Those are my concerns.
I feel very comfortable with this right at the present time. We are leading the county in the formulation of a recreation business zone. We are redoing many of the zoning laws, and this will be something that we certainly can look at again within the next year. But to get something on the books to allow us to go forward, to allow our planning board to make these decisions, and to allow the planning board to cover some of these issues I believe that Howard brought up, but I wanted it vague. I didn't want to specifically tie in, because the more that you have an abundance of regulations, then the less flexibility a board has to grant a variance or to grant a change or to grant anything. The problem we ran into with the Dunsmores specifically was our regulations did not allow the flexibility that they wanted and that everyone in their area wanted. This gives that flexibility. I'm not saying that it would give carte blanche to those who wish to put anything in, because our planning boards and zoning board of appeals have that power and will be given adequate powers, I believe, under this resolution. And if it doesn't work, we can modify it.
There's another point that I think you're not really considering. When I spoke to Scott Chatfield, who was an expert in zoning and planning, he felt that town boards were too timid about putting ordinances in when they felt that they had it worked as well as they could without having any experience with it, and that they might better put this ordinance on the books, and then by experience, if people are interpreting it a way in which it was not intended, then you amend the ordinance to cover that contingency which was not obvious when you first wrote the ordinance. Unfortunately, most town boards and most towns are a little hesitant to get involved in the process because there's many steps to it. However, I feel that's something that we as a board should be willing to do for the people of the town, is to take the time when an ordinance isn't fitting what the true needs of the community are, to jump in and spend that time and make it what it should be, so that it does meet the original criteria that we were after. And I feel that this is a very good start. If it turns out that there are ways in which there could be interpretations from a planning board that are different from our original intention, then the town board should jump immediately and look into addressing those areas of the ordinance if there's a problem.
That may be after something won't be happening. It'll be too late for that particular case if we wait till it happens to change the amendment.
Well, Howard, we went through this and we had I think, very nice workshop with the entire town board and the entire planning board, the chairman of the zoning board, and the building inspector, and this was what we came up that was something that the majority of the group felt was very workable. And I really think that a lot of thought has been put into this by a lot of people, and including legal advice and the county, and I think this is a very good place to start. If it needs to be revised later, we can always do that.
Thank you. Any other comments relative to this resolution? Hearing none, Byron, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridley.
Aye.
Councilman Rose.
I'm going to abstain.
Councilwoman Smart.
Aye.
Councilman Warner.
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland.
Aye. Is there any other new business to come before us? Does anybody have anything?
Yeah, one thing. I was in here the other night, and the temperature in this room was 80 degrees, and nobody was here. Why do we have the heat cranked up so high at night when no one's here? That's not the first time I've noticed that happening. Why do we
Because probably the senior citizens turned it up when they come in for the dinner, and I didn't come turn it down.
It wasn't Wednesday night. And that's
Well, they were here last Wednesday.
Well, it's been happening more than once, and I'd like to see these things turned down when we leave at night. I don't know why they need to be left up like that. I mean, if we're really concerned about saving taxpayers' dollars, I think that's a good place to start. So I would like to ask that we be more conscious of that. That's all I have.
Excuse me. Supervisor McFarland? Yes. Could I approach the board with a topic? Why don't we wait until public comment? It'll just be a moment. Do you have a petition to submit? No, I don't. Okay. Any other new business to come before us? Public comment. We're at that point in the meeting where somebody has some public comment. Yes.
My name's Alan Kestner. Is Reverend Hinman here tonight? I'm going to be arrogant enough to think that I can speak on his behalf in regard to this fee for meeting here. First of all, I would think that he would counsel you to try to reason together because there must be some compromise here. The main thrust of Howard's resolution seems to be lowering the fee, not necessarily open. There's really two issues here, lowering the fee and opening it up to individuals. And as far as this being used for Satan worshipers, was that the phrase you used? You sounded half serious, but I would bet you $1 if there are any Satan worshipers in Fulton that they're organized.
Yes, are they an official not-for-profit group?
I would imagine that there are people, there are covens who have tax. You may think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. There are covens who have not tax-exempt tax numbers with the federal government. They're legal in England. There are witches over there. There are good witches over there, though. But you should try to. There must be something in between here, between the one and the other. Another thing is that I just don't understand how you come up with some of these resolutions that you think that you're bending to the will of the people, because this is not all of Volney here, but there are a few people here tonight, and I bet you if you run these resolutions by this group here, there would be two of them that would be reversed. Two of them would be reversed. And it would seem to me that when we get up here and comment on resolutions that you've already got your mind made up. And no matter what we say, no matter how the people of Volney feel, it doesn't seem to make much difference to you.
My name is Clarence Hawksley. I've been a resident of the town of Volney some 40 years. I know it's been passed, the resolution 9342, regards to that money we paid for that study with the city of Fulton and Granby. And it bothers me, I should have said before, down there it says, now therefore it be resolved, the Volney Town Board in conjunction with the town of Granby, city of Fulton, having reviewed the study proposal, recommends proceeding. That means proceeding beyond the $500.
No, it doesn't.
Oh. Yeah, but down it says seeking financing for the studies. Now, what I read in the paper is true, they're talking somewhere in between $50,000 and $75,000 for an extended study of what we can do for the city of Fulton. And I had a letter in a paper a while back to a lady in the city of Fulton, Mrs. Marbito, and I thought it came from her, but apparently it came from somebody else, that they were talking about annexing some of the property in town of Volney. And they said, no, that isn't true. And she said, your supervisor said, no, that isn't true. And then we went on to talk of what we can give to the city of Fulton, the town of Granby can give the city of Fulton, and what they can give to us. And nowhere, what I read so far, it's been mumble jumble. They don't explain what they would like to receive from us. Can you explain anything? You've been in on those studies.
Okay, the thing is, the way it is set up right now is that the municipal boards are not really part of the Fulton Area Partnership. They are a subcommittee. I have never, other than at the general meeting that everybody went to, been to an actual, real Fulton Area Partnership meeting. I have only been to a couple committee meetings that were only for the municipal people to be at. That is one of the things that I think needs to change if this is ever going to amount to anything, is that the Fulton Area Partnership has to have more input from the local municipalities, or else all of their work will be for nothing, because they can get a lot of plans and they spend a lot of time and a lot of energy and they present it to us and we all go, what? I don't want this. They need to know what we're thinking, or else their work is a waste of time. I really think what it should be is that the representatives from the city of Fulton, Jim Myers and the other gentleman that's on there, the two representatives from Granby, and Dave and myself should be at the regular Fulton Area Partnership meetings. Then we can be giving them an idea of how we think our boards would react to different proposals. Bring those proposals back to the board so we can all discuss it. If it seems that the discussion's getting into areas that we have no idea of what all of the members of the board would think, say, wait a minute, we better just hold a meeting and include everybody, that this is something that cannot be done by committee at this time. I think that it needs to have more involvement, or else it's going to be just a lot of meetings. I've met some nice people. That looks good, but, you know, if we're going to really accomplish anything besides meeting nice people, I think we need to have more direct involvement.
The FAP and East West Associates, what they are seeking is not more money, but they are under the total amount that we gave them between the city and the two towns. They want to proceed and investigate the possible sources of funding. And there are grants out there to allow greater study. And there's a young lady behind you, Carol. Would you care to comment a little bit on that? What they are seeking to do to round out that investigation? This is
they're looking, David, for
who you are.
Carol Rutledge, City of Fulton Community Development Agency. We are trying to access some funding to do these kinds of studies, to do an infrastructure study, to do a fiscal management study. If the funds are there, it would be either 100% grant, 60-40, or 50-50. It could be, you know, in any shared proposal. We would have to come back to you as a board, as the town. We'd go to the City of Fulton, we would go to the town of Granby as well, and get a resolution to proceed. This work is to complete what is already within the scope of the contract. The existing contract, $500 from Volney, $500 from Granby, and $4,000 from the City of Fulton. To be perfectly honest with you, if we have done nothing else as the Fulton Area Partnership, we have established a dialogue between the towns of Volney, Granby, and the City of Fulton, which hasn't been happening for quite a number of years. And I would hope that we could continue. I would hope that we could explore sharing services, extending infrastructure, sharing personnel, cutting down on our costs, maybe by buying as a group, rock salt. I mean, such things as paper supplies. You know, we might have more impact as a group. We might be able to get better prices, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Carol. Yes.
I have a question. You said that you're not allowed to go to these meetings. We contributed $500 to this Fulton Area Partnership, and Dave, you appointed Claudia. Am I to understand that you are not a part of these meetings?
No, it's just a separate committee on this report. That's all it was.
You were part of the intergovernmental committee, which has been discussing all of these issues, Claudia, and you and Dave were supposed to come back to the other members of the town of Volney board and report on what's been going on. And if that hasn't been happening, then...
There has been, but we were not, the municipal people were not actually part of the regular
area partnership.
David is. David's on both. David, you go to both meetings?
Yes.
I haven't heard a report from you every month regarding this Fulton Area Partnership.
You've heard reports when I've attended the meetings.
Can you tell us what we got so far from $500 we got invested? I guess I don't understand what we've got out of this, because I haven't heard much. So we gave $500 to the Fulton Area Partnership. What did we get out of it? Anything yet?
You've got a preliminary study that's been done that addressed 4 issues primarily. Housing issues, which are within the 3 municipality areas that they might have common interest in, or might have common problems. Economic development issues, infrastructure, and fiscal management. When the preliminary proposal came back down, it was sent to all the board members. Am I right, Howard? You got the preliminary proposal. You were then offered the opportunity to comment, to address each issue, to tell maybe where you would like to go into further depth. Out of those issues, quite frankly, infrastructure and fiscal management were the only items that there was a majority of interest in. And that's why we are pursuing further to see if there is common ground within the 3 areas. I know there seems to be an awful lot of suspicion. This is something that the city of Fulton is trying to cram down both Volney and Granby's throat, and it's not that way. It's the way of the future. You find the state of New York doing it with the school systems, trying to get cooperative effort in an attempt to save money, share personnel.
Well, you have to understand the suspicion. I'm sure everyone has.
Oh, I do understand, because it's
the suspicion is that you want land. You want us to give you land and trade for services. That's no secret. That's under suspicion. And I was involved in the first meeting, and that was the first thing that was said. They want to trade for land for services. That's no secret. Now you're saying that's not part of it?
I'll tell you it has been discussed. I'm not saying that's the main focus, because that isn't one of the things that we're addressing at this point. If it was discussed preliminarily, apparently it isn't an issue that everyone shares in equally. So there are other ways to share other than annexing land, and I'll be perfectly frank with you. There are municipal agreements that we could, for example, if the county of Oswego at their industrial park at the airport wanted to expand, really get some economic development going out there, they wanted water and sewer from the city of Fulton. It's located in the town of Volney. It's the county of Oswego. It would probably be the city of Fulton who would provide the services, and I would say that we would all share with the expense, with the benefits, maybe some tax breaks and things like that, without necessarily any land ever having to transfer. There are ways to do this.
I think there's probably some very good ideas involved in this, and I think, like what you're hearing is we're not getting a lot of information. If this report was submitted by each board member, I don't remember anybody reporting on this at a board meeting that they submitted a report and what their comments were.
There was also an open meeting on December,
right,
where the public was invited.
Oh yes, if the public would like to find out what happened during the last meeting, I videotaped the meeting, and it's down at Video World where you can view the meeting if you wanted to.
Great. Just quickly, let me say, I hate to have your meeting like this, but I sit in the city of Fulton with $1 million revolving loan fund. I can only assist businesses within the city of Fulton. I've had calls from people in Granby. I've had calls from businesses in Volney people wanting to start up or wanting to expand. I can't go outside the city of Fulton. If we were to get some kind of a cooperative effort going where I could lend money, we could create jobs that all 3 areas are going to benefit. And obviously, they're not all going to be Volney residents, they're not all going to be city residents. We could all share, maybe even in the property taxes. That's the kind of thing that maybe somewhere down the line we will get to see, where everyone will benefit within this area without necessarily taking land and trade or something like that.
Thank you, Carol.
Can we make a comment, can we, or something? I'm Bill Pierce. I live on Faith Street. It's a municipal cooperation between Fulton and Volney. I'll talk about Volney because I live on the Volney side of the road, even though the water lines in the city of Fulton is maintained by the city of Fulton. I had to pay 165% for my water, for maintenance and everything, even though the trunk line is in the city. And since 1974, I've gone through Mayor Patrick, Mayor Drone, Mayor Alberton. I don't mind paying the extra 40% because we don't pay city tax. But the maintenance charge, I feel that we should have never had to pay. But at the meetings, water meetings I have attended,
and from the past council meetings I've had attended with he's retired, I think it was named the past council president. Fulton's got water and sewage. Well, Volney's got a lot of water if they want to get into Onondaga Water Authority, Metropolitan Water Authority pipeline. We have that going through the center of Volney, and we have water. If we have proper plans, we have water. There's no problem. Going like near the industrial park and all that. A few years ago, the city of Fulton increased their waste treatment plant. They went to taxpayers. We found $7.5 million to expand the waste treatment plant. But it was one mistake. They didn't expand for future. They didn't make it big enough to cover the use. And this is one of the reasons they kept giving me, that we don't have capacity to add no more industry and stuff like this outside of Fulton, Volney, and the Granby. And how do we go back to the taxpayers and explain to them, well, gee, we want to be bond to increase our sewage waste treatment plant because we goofed. You know, and I've been fighting this since 1974, and there's been no cooperation. And there's no cooperation as far as you get the town of Granby. Fulton's trying to get their waste treatment plant over there out the tax rolls. But Granby asked for years to have the water line out Hannibal Street taken care of by Fulton. Oh no, we ain't going to do that. You know, but we want the taxes excused from the sewage plant. But where's the cooperation? People from outside of Fulton for years, they don't want to even know nothing about it. But now that they're in a financial bind, they want to be bailed out. And with proper planning, we got a nice community ourselves right here. And if we're going to be, we can use the Onondaga Water Authority line, the Metropolitan Water Authority line. We're already paying the external charge. When the Millers started paying for the Fulton water, we all get the external charge. Thank you. Anyway.
I would like to,
and I got the letters from the mayors. I got all the paperwork on it if anybody wants to see it.
I would like to point out one thing and correct an impression. The impression may be that all this started out of a need by the city of Fulton. It actually started a couple of years ago when several well-meaning individuals, none of them connected with government, felt that there was what was happening in the communities was a downhill slide, and they were very concerned about it. And so these are all private citizens, very concerned with what is happening. And we organized together, Vern Drone, Ed Boehner, myself, the heads of some of the industries. Carol, who else is on that FAP committee?
Oh, Kurt Nortel, who is Nestle manager, Miller Sullivan, Chris Naylor, who manages the Luxury Restaurant, Jerry Ware, who is a Volney resident and is president of or manager of the local Marie Midlands Bank, Mike Pollack, who lives in Granby, who is Fulton Savings Bank, Sonny Allen, Evelyn Taylor, Larry Rowley. I sit on as not as a voting member, but just to be able to put any information in that's necessary about the city of Fulton. I think it's important to note that when Muriel Ellerton and Eleanor Wilhelmy, who was the then director of the Community Development Agency, established this committee, they both wanted to ensure that really there would be no political input and there would be none of the old guard who would be participating. By that, I meant Muriel Ellerton, Eleanor Wilhelmy, who was the director of the CDA, and Madeline Howell, who was the then chamber director. This committee was supposed to be completely independent and could probably accomplish things that government could not accomplish. He's an ex-mayor of Fulton, right. And he was bringing into this committee his expertise as an ex-mayor on the kinds of things that affect government and that hamper government.
Yeah, there are people out there
who are very concerned and have no altruistic purpose other than an attempt to better the status quo, and that's what we are doing, or trying to do. Joe, do you
Yes, excuse me. I apologize for interrupting the board a little earlier. I had something I'd like to discuss with the board tonight, and I didn't know if I was new business or public comment or where I fit in. So anyway, here I am, and it sounds like a lot of the comments I'm hearing about cooperation and sharing are probably very relevant to what I have to say tonight. I represent the Widewaters Group and Widewaters Pierce Drive Associates, who would like to build the Kmart Shopping Center here in Volney. About 2 years ago, we began the project with Larry Raleigh, the landowner, and a year after that, we began with the town board, the town planning board, and will eventually be with the ZBA, I hope, to start the planning process, start the rezoning process, and we do have an approved project at this point, but we do have some concerns. The project, just to refresh everyone's memory, I think will be a project that will generate in excess of, these are rough estimates at this point, but in excess of $100,000 a year in property taxes and 350 to 400 permanent full-time and part-time retail jobs. Since we began the plaza, and when we initially started, we looked at the sewer and water that was available to it, and the sewer and water was sufficient to serve the main center, the Kmart, the grocer, the small shops. Unfortunately, since that time, we've run into some roadblocks, which has led us to a little bit of a delay, which we hope we can overcome because of increasing costs, specifically increased Department of Transportation road improvement costs and fee costs that have doubled what our original budget amounts were, and also very, very strict financing contingencies and very tough lending policies has made it difficult for us to continue on with the project as it is today without expanding it now before we come out of the ground with it. The problem exists because in order to do that, we need additional sewer and water, and everybody knows that the sewer and water comes from the city of Fulton. We've approached each of the town board members individually to discuss our concern, to suggest some things, and to kind of discuss a proposed plan, which I'll get into in a second. But we wanted each of the board members to feel free to discuss with us openly and answer any questions that they had at that time. The reason that I came before the board tonight is because we're asking really for the board's assistance and would like the board to consider appointing perhaps a committee of board members that would consider a revenue sharing plan of sorts, which would involve really three things, some of which have come up tonight. The first thing would involve, now this is a plan, remember, between the town of Volney and the city of Fulton. The first part of the revenue sharing plan would involve sewer and water to be provided to the shopping center and to town lands in Volney, so that those town lands could be developed into the future, however they may develop. The second part of the land would be an annexation of the shopping center property only into the city of Fulton. And the third part of the plan would be contractual agreement between the city of Fulton and the town of Volney, whereby any property taxes generated by the property would be paid from the city of Fulton back to the town of Volney. So the practical effect of it is that the town has all the sewer and water that we'll need for the shopping center, as well as to develop the remaining lands, which will remain in the town. The town will be relieved of any responsibility for the property, any liability, any plowing, any fire coverage, anything like that. And finally, the town would get the property taxes that it would have gotten anyway. So, although annexation is a part of the plan, it's our feeling anyway that the town is not giving anything up and is in fact putting the town in a better position to go forward on other town lands. The reason I just proposed this revenue sharing plan in concept tonight is that there are a lot of practical questions and a lot of practical difficulties that will be that need to be worked out along the way. Also, we're not looking for a firm commitment from the town tonight to agree to everything. It'll be a long process, and the town and the town's attorneys and the citizens of Volney, as well as
the city of Fulton and their residents and their attorneys will all get a chance to comment on these issues, and I'll get a chance to give their input. But in order to continue to go forward with this center, we may have a problem without this board's cooperation and without this board's commitment to at least consider entering into a revenue sharing plan of some sort with the city of Fulton. And tonight I'm here to ask the board if they would consider forming a committee so that we can begin to approach the city of Fulton to see if they are also receptive to the plan that I proposed or something like it. With that, I turn it back to the board.
You brought up the word, Joe, annexation. How many acres are you talking on that?
Only the shopping center. The shopping center is about 25, 26 acres.
Now, you said the proposal would be the town of Volney would get property tax.
That's right.
And what would the city of Fulton get out of this?
The city of Fulton would provide sewer and water and would gain sales tax that the town is not authorized to collect anyway.
Are we still under public comment?
Yeah.
Yes. Sir. Who, was this your proposal to the city of Fulton, or is this the city of Fulton's proposal to you?
This is only an initial proposal, and like I said, very early stages now. I probably can't answer a lot of questions because it's very, very conceptual. I don't have a lot of details to give you. The city of Fulton did not approach us. We approached.
Why did you feel that you had to make this concession to the city of Fulton?
Well, sir, we don't see it as a concession.
Well, let me ask you this: Did you go up to them and say we want some additional water and sewage?
Yes, we did.
And what was their response to that?
The city is interested in working out some kind of cooperative arrangement with the town.
They won't sell
and I
to
think,
it.
pardon?
They won't sell to the mall at 165% of what it cost the city of Fulton, or the people in the city of Fulton. Is that essentially
I
what's
don't
going
believe
on?
they will, sir.
So they're just, this is leverage. You want the water, they get the bathtub.
I don't think it's leverage at all, really.
Well, what I mean to say is, they're not going to sell the water to the town of Volney to use in the mall. That's essentially what they're saying, isn't it?
No, the town of Volney, the city of Fulton rather, has made a commitment to the mall to provide a certain amount of sewer and water.
But not
and what I'm saying as a representative of the developer, that's right. Not what I need to expand it.
And without that, what happens to the mall?
The economic viability of it is potentially in jeopardy.
How soon do you need this increased capacity?
Immediately.
Well, wait a minute, I mean, it's not built.
No.
How soon are things gonna be to the point that you would need the additional water and sewer?
I think we are, I don't mean to answer for Joe, but it is my understanding, Joe, correct me, and that in order to have the whole project go as a project, that the additional capacity is required immediately. If the additional capacity is not available, then the whole project is viably in danger of water.
That's correct. I mean, immediately is the right answer. The project is not existing, but the decision could very easily be made. And you know, I don't mean this as a threat, but it's just at some point it becomes an economic question for us too. That if certain portions of the project can't function because they don't have the sewer and water that they need, it may mean that there is no project.
Larry Rowley.
Are dependent on each other.
We have the water. Larry Rowley, I heard the word annexation, I heard Marie Moan over here.
Right. Me too.
I was already told it was never gonna happen.
Well, I'm involved in this, as you know, I own the land, and I've been working for years to develop in Fulton and around Fulton. I own land both in Volney and in Fulton, and in Granby for that matter. I think it's interesting to know, everybody has a lot of bad vibes, different thoughts, you know, the A word, and everybody gets all upset. I think the thing that we have to keep in mind is times have changed.
the health department has changed its laws and is enforcing septic systems at a different level. There are a lot of problems trying to develop and build and do different things. The cable TV that came up earlier spidered out of the city. They didn't come to Volney first, they came to the city of Fulton first. The water comes from Fulton. Indirectly, we do have Metropolitan Water Line. There's a lot of good points brought up here tonight, but in all truth, from let's say a developer standpoint or a builder standpoint, it's going to be a long, long time before we can afford to set up a pumping station and a distribution center. It will never happen probably in my lifetime. Outside of, if we were to come off Metropolitan by ourselves, so all these services are spidering out of the city. The city, so to speak, is the heartbeat. Yes, the city is having financial trouble. It's in the paper. I mean, that's not any mystery. I've always felt that for us to get stronger, the whole area has to be stronger. I work in the city of Fulton. I work in the town of Volney. I live in the town of Volney. I used to live in the city of Fulton. I somehow think that sooner or later we got to bridge over this, what they did to us 10 years ago or what we did to them or what we thought was taking place, and start growing with positive growth. I may be partly to blame, if you want to call it that, for this concept because I was looking for, I don't like to give up anything, you know that as well as anything. But I felt as we got talking and working things back together that to be realistic, the town of Volney does have resources, mainly land. We don't have a sewer station or capacity in any way. Our water right now, for the immediate future and for the very near future, has got to come out of the city of Fulton. And I don't think that's the big question.
I disagree with you, Larry.
Okay, how would you disagree?
I disagree the water has come out of the city of Fulton.
How
We
are you?
made an agreement with Metropolitan Water Board when I was on the board for
Sure.
so many thousands of gallons a day.
Marie,
Okay,
the
but-
figure you're looking for is 650,000
Yes,
gallons per day.
that's, you're right.
Okay, it isn't, no, we're entitled to that.
Well, wait a minute,
That's not my
how come
question.
Miller Brewery got in here without any, well, they would have to annex Miller Brewery to Fulton. Why do we have to annex this Kmart to Fulton?
Why, let me ask you, what do you object about it?
What I object about,
Yep.
when you start turning land over to the city, they're not gonna stop there, Larry, because they've already stated at a meeting that I was at, with John Kiss, who's not here, said that they would like land from the city of Fulton, right up 57 to Great Bear Farm. That is what they are considering annexing. If you start with this Kmart, that's just the beginning.
Okay, what are you giving up? I just asked a question.
Come on, Larry, all you are, I understand where you're coming from. You're out to make a profit out of business. I understand that. But you're asking the town taxpayers to sacrifice land to the city of
They're
Fulton.
not sacrificing, it's my land, first of all. Okay,
The
second.
land is in the municipal boundaries of the town of Volney.
Right.
Volney gives up the right to that land. They've taken away from land that is in their boundaries and it's no longer theirs.
I understand
You may
that.
be the owner, but the governmental body.
And is it legal to give taxes to us? Is that legal? If it's in the city of Fulton, the city of Fulton?
Or you're not gonna get this beautiful plaza. I say don't, because my taxes aren't gonna go down. I mean, if my taxes were gonna be cut in half, I'd say, great, let's give them a little bit. My taxes aren't gonna go down, I say don't blackmail me, I'll see you later. I'm sorry.
Absolutely our last possible intention to blackmail anyone. I have a lot of personal financial incentives to see the shopping center happen, as does Mr. Ayala. We're partners in the project, as is our company, as does Kmart. Blackmail is the last thing from our minds. All we're here tonight to do is propose that this board consider doing something. Consider a plan that we suggested. As a part of that plan, the three things that I mentioned: sewer and water for the shopping center, as well as lands in Volney. The property, only the shopping center property would be annexed into the city, and finally, all the real property taxes would be paid to the town. Now remember, there's 350, 400 jobs here at stake that I don't think anybody wants to see leave the area, and our plan is conceptual. All we're here tonight to say is, will this town board and will this town consider it? I don't want a yes or no tonight. I just want people to come, to be open-minded, to listen, to really consider the benefits, to really consider the detriments, and that's all we're asking. That's it.
Well, I don't want to make it a debate. I just want to respond to some of your remarks so you'll understand the truth. We always said we had enough sewer to build the original portion of the center that we were going to build. We had no plan, as I'm sure the planning board can tell you, for any other addition at that time or in the near future. What caused this to happen is, and if you listen to Mr. Rodriguez, and it's the truth and we can verify it, the budget of what DOT is costing us for the mitigation to do the work out on that highway and the brake access has doubled, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars, not a couple dollars, hundreds of thousands. We could not predict that. No one could predict what the state was going to charge. No one knew what the state was going to charge. We found out 5 weeks ago what they charged us to work in a year with their review committee. That's number one. Number two, the whole industry has changed. The whole philosophy of the lending institutions, which you can verify with your local banks, the parameters in which we borrow and how we operate have changed. We cannot borrow maybe the dollars we need without having X out here as income. We didn't change a thing. The industry, the lending institution, DOT dictated what we have to do at this point in time. There's no blackmail involved. We want to build a center. It's that simple. We're trying to find a way to accomplish that goal. Period.
You have to understand what I'm saying. I'm an engineer myself.
Right.
And I deal with budgets and all that. And I deal with I deal with the nuclear regulatory, I deal with money. And let me tell you, it's more restrictive than the DOT. Well, I would love to be able to deal with the DOT. And I'm not going to stand here and argue with it. I'm saying it's not money. To these people here, we sat here and we listened to these people up here on this board get asked a question point blank. You know, what are your expectations and what will you do if the subject of any annexation comes up? And we went down, kabink, 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 5 of them, and they said we won't consider it. Now what you're doing is you're putting pressure on all of us and those people there to talk about annexation. And I'm just telling you, it just leaves a sour taste in our mouth. I would love to see 300-400 jobs, and I would love to see you get a water line as big as you need and sewer as big as you need. But let me tell you, if you can't plan to have...
You know that if you know what you're talking about. You can't plan what DOT will charge you. I know you got to know that. Because that process of breaking access took us 12 months. No one in the regional office knew. It didn't until it went to the state. And then it's such a secretive process of how they determine what that cost is. This is one of the few times that someone's even been able to break access off a state highway, if you understand how that process works.
Okay, let me just... You're talking about access to a state highway on one side, but what you're here for is water lines and sewer. What's the difference?
The connection is what it costs us to accomplish that goal. To have that access has doubled the budget, number one. Okay, it's doubled the budget alone.
So it's a money thing, it's not the size of the line or a sewer.
Let me finish. On the other hand, in conjunction with that, the parameters in which the lenders let us borrow money for these centers have changed. I'm sure you see people going broke. I'm sure you're seeing banks taking repossession of property, and they've had it there. So they've changed the parameters and really strictened them up. In order to make the project viable so we can even do it, we need more water and sewer. Now, we didn't know that before. We came with a plan to build the center that we started. We can still build that, but we can't make it viable without the addition that we need now for the lenders. We haven't changed a thing.
I'm sympathetic for you, and I would love to see it go. But don't ask us. It's hard for us to talk annexation because we've been through it and through it and through it.
And it'll work. So we accomplish our goal. You have a center you can have if that's part of
right,
the
and
goal.
you started a precedent, and then down 57 and out 481 was done.
I want to look back and forth to continue. Vern.
Vern Gould. Well, for one thing, this belongs with the planning board, not here. And here, they were going to put in a trailer park that facilitates more people than this shopping center. And a plan was all done for the water, to supply the water for 90 homes, I believe it was, which people living there all the time using water to do their dishes and to do their baths and wash their clothes and flush their toilets, and a whole septic system was all planned on to put onto that property, a sewage system. Why such a large system like that for a trailer park was okayed, and these people don't want to go through that. There's plenty of water in the area. There's water right there nearby that the city of Fulton supplies for their water. You can also get it from the municipality, and you can also put in your own sewer system. That's not such a big deal. they can do that and no talk about this annexation and everything else. But this does belong with the planning board.
I'll let Larry Rowley, an expert on this, answer that.
Well, I think experts awfully strong. No, I think, again, this thing got kind of out of whack a little bit here tonight, but.
A little bit.
No, but this is,
Word annex is out of whack.
this is the town board. I know the question was asked earlier, because we hadn't thought of this earlier. I think we have a right to come up and pose a question to the town board. As a resident and as a builder here, I think I have as much right to just come up and ask. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking. And keep in mind that we asked just for a couple of committee people to work with somebody. Maybe Lauren, whoever you want, brought up the concept of perhaps working through Miller's or something else. Maybe the committee will come up with some alternatives. We're scratching our heads trying to make things work. That's basically all it is. Time is a problem, as also, everybody could say no, no, no. We're just asking, with a couple people on the board, work with a couple people to explore possibilities, nothing more, just to open it up. And there may be other...
Since this discussion got started, there have been some people looking into other avenues.
Maybe that's part of it, that's what I'm saying.
They got a discussion started, but it's premature because things are in negotiation stages, but it does not require annexation.
What I would like... That's fine, but we're just asking for some people to work with to start working. This was the thought we had, But
I don't think it is the responsibility of the planning board. I think it is the responsibility of this town board and I agree that time is of the essence, and I agree that a committee of this board, working with all concerned, might come up with some potential solutions. And unless the individuals object, I'd like to appoint Claudia Smart, Howard Rose, to serve on that committee without myself, and to work and meet with all concerned and possibly come up with some potential solutions. Unless you have any objection.
Thank you for that designation. I was going to ask for it.
Okay. Claudia, would you serve?
Sure.
And is that acceptable?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Supervisor.
Yes, sir.
Clarence Foxley again. If we approach the subject of annexation, does that require a town referendum?
That'd
be a point of order.
Okay.
We looked it up.
Since this was asked of us, I figured this question would come up. So I did my homework, and we talked to a lawyer. Okay. According to the New York State Constitution, the people of the territory have to consent by a majority vote. That is not the people of the entire town. It is the people of the area involved. And the governing board of both municipalities involved must also consent. Okay. One of the key issues has to be, is the annexation in the public interest. And they do not mean in the public interest of Kmart, they mean in the public interest of all people involved. And that includes the town of Volney, the city of Fulton, the Fulton School District, the fire companies involved, and the residents in the area. Okay, under general municipal law, a petition can be filed by 20% of the residents, not just land ownership in the area, or by owners of the majority of the assessed valuation. Okay, this petition would be presented to the board losing the property, and a copy filed to the board getting it. Then there would have to be a joint public hearing, which also the school district and fire districts involved would have to be notified. Both written and oral statements would be accepted at the public hearing. Okay, once that was done, both boards involved would have to look through it with legal advice as to, is the petition satisfactory? Is it in the overall best interest of all involved? And each board would have within 90 days to approve it by resolution. The board can deny it if it's not in the board's best, if it's not in the town's best interest. If it's approved by both boards, it has to have a special election, and a majority of the residents in the area involved have to vote for it. Those are the steps. There's quite a few of them.
When you say the area involved, are you talking Volney and Fulton, or just Volney?
The people who vote as citizens are the people who are landowners and are not just landowners, residents in the area that would be annexed. So it would not be a town-wide or city-wide. It would only be the people affected. However, both boards would have to agree. It can't. Both boards have to.
Both residents of both areas?
No. The residents of the land involved.
Okay, Volney, the residents of Volney.
No. Residents of that portion of property would have to vote. And no, he's not a resident. He doesn't live on that land out there among the trees that are being sawed down. So he wouldn't vote on it. However, his son does, so he could vote. All right. All right, but it would have to be both boards of both Volney and the city of Fulton would have to determine it was in the best interest of all involved. It is not a quick process by any means. It's not something that somebody can sneak by. And if it's not in the best interest of the town, you have every right to forget it.
If I may, before we quit, I'm all in favor of this gentleman presenting his petition to the board, and the board's got to make a decision. From what I can see, we're talking 5-6 months down the road, and these gentlemen got money sitting there tied up that they can't afford to do. And the price of money's going up every day. As the economy grows, the price of loan of money is going to go up. I think these gentlemen should look at other alternatives of getting what they need. If they have to pay Fulton more money for their water and sewage, or if they have to tie in with Miller. Larry, you're the builder. You should be looking into this stuff. Because it's like I say.
There are several people looking into it right now, and Howard and I will be involved with discussing it with them.
But it's still a long ways down the road.
That's the last option.
To answer Bud's question, we are exploring, and we're hoping that the committee may even come up with something. We're asking questions and trying, that's all. It's not an easy answer, no matter how you do it. And I'm not the builder, why voters is, I'm basically the landowner.
Yes. I'm Mildred Hackett, and of course you know that rumors always run rampant, but I'd like to know what the latest rumors are about the distension between some of the members of the board and some of those in Fulton, and it seems though someone said in anger, well then we'll build our own sewage disposal plant in Volney. And I hope none of you are entertaining anything like that, because I don't think that people in Volney can afford it.
Yes. Barbara McEwen, when you speaking about majority, Claudia, what is the majority, and how many houses are we talking about around that area?
How many houses are in the area that you are talking about?
Probably 4.
Larry Riley already owns it, right?
Larry.
No, I don't.
Can I put you in there?
Sure.
Anybody else? I was just wondering, Joe, could you just, for information purposes, what would be the difference in property tax revenue to the town, the property as it is now versus, let's say, once a plaza's on it? Just so we can get that perspective. Do you have any idea?
Larry, do you remember what your last tax bill was?
It's vacant land, it's not very much. It's right a couple $1,000.
Once the center is built, it's going to be probably between $100,000 and $150,000 a year.
And if you're part of the city of Fulton, triple.
No,
yeah, but they're the ones that would assess it.
Right. It's triple, it's your benefit then.
No,
No, we just get what it would be worth to,
No.
No. No, that's not the deal we proposed to the city. It's not the deal.
The assessing, since it would be owned, my understanding is since it would be part of Fulton, should it be part of Fulton, that they would assess it. And we would get those taxes that they assessed.
That's right. That's what we proposed. That's what we proposed.
Well, I think I speak to the rest of the board that this is nothing we even really want to think about and have any kind of real discussions about until we have exhausted every other possible avenue. It makes me sick to my stomach the thought of even considering it, all right?
Well,
I want to look into all of the other things available.
Mrs. Smart, since you are a committee member, I guess I would just stress one thing, and that's that we're under some real tight deadlines, that if we don't pull this thing out of the ground in March, there's not going to be a center here. All I'm asking is that we keep an open mind.
A good clip, because also at this time, the town of Schuylkill has a similar problem.
If you want it bad
So-
enough, you can wait.
Luckily for the town of Volney, there's a lot of problems all at the same time, so there's more interest than there would have been in solving it.
Yes, may I make one comment and one question, please? First, the comment is, I don't think that you gentlemen should be cast as blackmailers. I think, though, that you're telling us we shouldn't remember all these things, the animosity between Fulton and Volney, and
So I'm hearing this one.
and yet I would, is it not fair to say that if Fulton would sell the water to the mall, then that none of this would be happening? Is that not fair to say?
Well, in all fairness, the water is not the big issue, it's the sewage.
Okay, I don't understand how giving them that is gonna all of a sudden make the sewers better, though. I don't understand that. It sounds like dog in the manger, to me.
Reword that, I didn't understand it. Go slower.
How is the sewage system all of a sudden going to change because they own the land?
One of the problems, I think, is with the sales tax dollar, from my understanding, they have a severe problem with the sewer.
Okay,
It's
so
one of capacity. It's not the capacity of the plant that's the problem, it's the infiltration to the lines that keeps the plant at capacity or over it, and when it runoffs and when it rains, okay? My understanding is a lot of these dollars will go to stop the infiltration, so the capacity is there to continue for growth.
So they're doing this as a commercial.
I can't tell you that's what'll happen, I'm telling you what I think the problem is and why. You're right, annexation of the problem does not solve the sewer problem, but the dollars through sales tax probably can and will, if it's done that way.
And there's another minor point here that I just want to bring up. Again, we're just trying to come up with some way to make things work. I have an additional 40 acres around the project, and every time I build a project in Volney, those of you who have lived here, you've seen them. I have to go back and negotiate with the city and work out the water and sewer, and it's always a difficult process at best. Part of this deal was that, if we could somehow come up with some working relationship, part of the deal was that they would extend water and sewer for that other 40 acres, of which remains in the town, which is industrial land, which, first off, maybe I'm not that smart. My thought was it's great. We end up with the tax money. We would have some sewer and water to continue this other 40 acres. That 40 acres was clearly not part of the deal. And they acknowledged that, that was the intent of the whole deal. So
there is a little more quid there.
Well, it was to give
It's all continuous land, it's not just that 40, it's all continuous land for the town. That's the way we propose it.
We propose
So
it
the
so
town
that-
gets sewer and water for continued growth. It doesn't have to be that 40 acres.
Say you have some
Anything
land
that's contiguous to the town.
contiguous to something, this would prepare a working arrangement so that you didn't have to go back and negotiate and barter and trade and all that stuff. And it just seemed to be a way of just trying to come up with a way to make it work. And I'm kind of an optimistic person. I keep trying to go ahead with different things and do different things, and that suits some people it doesn't. But I was trying to find a way to make it work. That other 40 acres is industrial land. It is adjacent. It is in the town of Volney. It was not part of this plan at all. It was part of the plan to be available for sewer and water, which was presented. So the thought was that you know, right now, no matter how you cut it, we gotta have sewer for these projects, and the other problem is with a well or something of that nature, we can't meet fire fall unless you have a massive system. It's very hard to have an infrastructure for a small setup like that to provide the services. And I agree with Millie, I don't think the town, maybe I'm wrong, but I meant for the town to take over the heartbeat, if you will, being the sewage treatment plant or the pumping stations is a major endeavor. It seems like, you mentioned earlier, some middle ground, so it seems like somehow maybe there's a method to make things start to work that way, that's all. I don't think we need to do some of that heavy infrastructure thing if we can make things work somehow.
Larry, can I ask, how do you get the sewer for all the other houses that you're doing? How does the city just give you that?
I went to the city many years ago. I've had an awful hard time getting Glen 2 off the ground. Back in '85, I went to the city for sewer and water and was granted sewer and water, and I came back here and the proposals that you saw tonight are kind of boilerplate. The town allowed me to, in a resolution back then, to build a water and sewer thing, pending I get the water and sewer from the city. It's kind of chicken and egg, and I had to go to the city and get the sewer and water and all that stuff. That was granted way back in '85, and the city is honoring that agreement. And this is the hard part about developing something. It's like you have to have all, I don't care if it's a small housing tract or Kmart or whatever. You need this, you need that, you have to go to the health department. It's kind of hard. You go here to this board and you get what you can, and then you go to that board and get their approval, and you keep going back and forth. But I have a resolution from the city granting me that, and I think the resolution dates way back into '85, '86 or something from the city of Fulton. And they have acknowledged that they've reserved that much capacity for me there. There are and were no trade-offs there, to answer your earlier questions. It was simply at that time, and keep in mind, residential is a very minimal situation. Doesn't use that much. No, I'm just saying it wasn't. It's just that the sewers.
They tell you the water for Glen. Why don't they tell you the water for?
Well, I think it's simply that the city's got problems. We all got problems. We're just trying to make it work, and it seemed like a win-win situation in that we wouldn't be giving up any taxes or anything. We still have the revenue, have no responsibility. The town cannot charge sales tax, but the city can. It just, you know, on the face value, I thought it was a great idea. It seemed to be a win-win situation, that was all, without building a heavy infrastructure system to go anywhere with it.
Why does, I believe we've now gained significant revenue by having that metropolitan water line traverse the town, right? I forget how much it is, but there's significant tax dollars involved because we receive property tax income from having that line go through the town. We tap into that line, we then lose that tax revenue.
No,
They already gave it away.
That tax revenue went to 86 or 87. It was, we have access to a guaranteed amount of water, but there was a $400,000 payment made over a period of 4 years to the township. We get no tax on that.
We get no taxes, and
We have already taken
so
that step.
we are guaranteed a capacity of 650,000 gallons per day. Of course, we'd have to pay for it, but I mean, we're guaranteed that it would be there to take.
You have to pay for it at Onondaga County's rate. Remember that. Whatever Onondaga County residents are paying, that's what you will pay. The other thing is, it keeps coming up with millers. I think you'll find out millers, the only thing that goes into their waste treatment plant is from the brewery. Their sewage and city water comes out of Fulton. Onondaga Metropolitan Water Line is for production, not drinking. You can check it out, but I think sewer and water comes out of the city. And Onondaga Water Line is for production, and the waste treatment plant is for waste off the brewery only.
Marie?
I have one suggestion. One of the things he said that he's looking for, a solution to this problem, and the problem seems to be regarding the sewage treatment plant. Right now, the city of Fulton has got so many problems with that treatment plant, they can't even deal with what they have now. Maybe what you should do is maybe take a break in your profit and give some of the money to increase the sewage treatment plant, and you could go ahead and build it. We keep our land and everybody's happy. I've dealt with you, Larry. You bought my house. I know how tough he is to deal with. But eventually, that's right, and eventually, if you say to Larry, hey, Larry, this is the bottom dollar, you got to give a little. If he figures he's gonna lose, he'll end up giving in, and maybe that's what you should do, Larry, is give a little bit of real profit. There's your solution, everybody wins.
Also, I can also say, what have you done for Volney? I have, for you.
Oh, Larry, well, I haven't made the money you have off the ground, Larry.
Let me just pass on a thought. I am not, I'm not ashamed of the projects that we've tried to develop around here, and I've lived here my whole life, and tried very hard to turn out some good projects, and
no one is condemning you for doing that.
And, you know, but I'm just saying that you have to keep trying, and I come back to the board and try to discuss it, and that's what I'm trying to do. You know, water districts, sewer districts, we never asked anybody to bond for anything, we pay everything. And again, we're just asking for a committee to look into it, to help us
Well, the
look into
committee
it.
is up there, has already said they would never consider annexing land over to the city of Fulton. They were all asked that, and they all stated they would not do it. I hope if you do consider it, there's alternatives, they can stick with that one comment.
There's other alternatives that I do not think these gentlemen are aware of that are being worked on as recently as today.
I'd like to, it's 10 o'clock, I'd like to wind this up, unless there, Joe, or Lou, do you have
I think
final comments?
is fine. If there's alternatives, our goal is to build a center. That's it, we want to. We're not really interested in any other thing. And what we need is help at this point in time from the board. We've asked that, consider that's the help we need at this point in time. We have that in mind, we'll try to move forward, that's all.
Yes, is there anything else? Yes.
I had a few things to say, but in lieu of the time, I won't say them. But could you maybe make a resolution that Byron can maybe make more copies? Because we're kind of running out of these copies, so, you know.
I made 775 copies today, so you could have copies tonight. How many would you like?
You mean we've got...
She's enough to go around everybody.
The last time I made 30 copies, and 25 of them sat on the front desk up there. I made 25 tonight.
We'll try to anticipate this larger crowd next time. I imagine we'll have one, so there will be more copies. Yes, Randy, I'm sorry, do you have something else?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on your resolution about the town hall. As you can tell, we're probably not very happy about the fact that it turned out the way it did. But the Boys, you waived the Boy Scouts giving the money and all. Could you do that to, say, the Bristol Hill Church, seeing that they're a landmark in Volney? They should be a little more under consideration, and I was wondering if maybe you could just waive their fee too, because they really can't afford that. And if you wanted to come to some of the dances and help with the donations, I bet they'd appreciate that too, if you could support it.
The Boy Scouts, they don't even need to use the town hall. They have both the church and the Grange today for free.
They do use it, right?
There were some scheduling difficulties that had to be worked out.
Well, what I'm trying to do is, could do the same for the Bristol Hill Church.
That is here, that's their church.
When they want to use the town hall.
This is going to be the last speaker. Yes.
Yes. In lieu to your the monies you're asking to use the hall, I'm going to ask you for one clarification on this. We have a group, Volunteer Parks and Recreation, who meets here. It's my support group for the recreation project that I run throughout the town. Without their help, we do nothing. Because every time I take 100 to 150 kids on an outing, these people do everything for me. Without them, I can't do a lot of the projects we do. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I had a meeting before us tonight. So we're all set on that then?
No charge. Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. So moved.
Second.
Byron told the council. Aye.
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 See you there, Terry.